dark haze. Ladies of the night with eyes of red, vampires in the alleys where good men dread, wolfmen howling beneath the pale moon. But justice is coming and coming soon. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us. Secrets they keep, nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. Cryptids themselves, yet they stand tall against the darkness, answering the call for every lost soul, every whispered prayer. They fight for the light in the midnight air. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us. Secrets they keep, nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. The night is young, the hunt begins. For against the darkness where hope never ends.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Nightmare Hunters. In the studio with me tonight is Robbie Jed Rains. Unfortunately, we won't have Doc or Steve tonight. They both had to work, but we will do our best to keep y'all entertained. And it looks like we just had some people join the channels, or was it gifted?
I think Bobby gave 5 memberships.
Oh, awesome. Bobby, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that, and congratulations to all the winners. Thank you, Bobby. So, Robbie, how you doing, brother? I think you've got a little bit of news to give.
Nah, they ain't interested in that.
Yeah, you never know.
Wild Hunt Shadow Hunters Project Manticore is done. I finished it today. Came in at just over 51,000 words. So should be able to, as long as Luke is able to work it in her schedule, it should be able to be released sometime next week, hopefully.
So that is awesome news. I'm nowhere near that close to being done with Leviathan down, but it is coming along. So hopefully I'll have some release information on that in the next week or so. But congrats, Robbie. Another book in the can. That'll be number 8 for you, right?
Number 8.
That's going to be awesome. Can't wait for that one to get out, brother. Wyatt says, heck yeah, Robbie, I need something to read.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm halfway done with number 9 already, so
yeah, just got to get to working. Same here. I've got a whole bunch of stuff in the work. Just got to get it done. Well, folks, tonight we're going to be talking about the upright cats of the Ozarks. And the reason we're going back to this subject is, well, the other night when we talked about Drury-Mincy and the incidents around there, and then we had some more incidents that we talked about that may or may not have been cat-like, especially with the Ozarks bone pile, I started doing some digging. And that night we talked about Drury-Mincy, we talked about a possible connection between the creatures of Drury-Mincy and the Ozarks Howler. Well, part of my brain just wouldn't let that go. So I started digging. I thought, well, surely if there's accounts of upright cats, then it's not just limited to Drury Mincy. So I started digging, and turns out, indeed, there are. And there are even a few anecdotal stories floating around, not like official case reports, but ones that just people talk about, especially from down around the Missouri-Arkansas border area, those bordering counties, of Ozarks Howlers being seen on their hind legs. It was one story of a farmer went out to check his chickens because he heard a ruckus, and he saw a cat-like creature standing on its hind legs trying to get in his chicken coop. And when it saw him, it snarled at him and turned and bounded off on all fours. But it was initially on two legs. There's several stories floating around that, just brief sighting stories like that. But that really got me to wanting to dig more. So I started digging. And this is kind of where we're at with that. There are stories here in the Ozarks that just don't fit the usual molds. They're not Bigfoot encounters. They're not mountain lion sightings. They're not bear misidentifications. These stories sit in strange, uncomfortable space between categories. A space that most people don't want to look at too closely. But we do. That's kind of what we do here. Because when you start listening to the hunters, the farmers, the truck drivers, the families who've lived in these hills for generations, a pattern starts to emerge. A pattern that stretches across counties, across decades, and across state lines. A pattern of something cat-like, something massive, and something intelligent. Something that stands upright. Now, this is where the story really starts to get interesting, because tonight we're pulling together 7 different encounters, 7 stories that were never meant to be connected, but absolutely are. Stories from Arkansas and Missouri that describe creatures that move like big cats and stand like humans, but then vanish like ghosts. There's a story about a Newton County bow hunter who watched a panther-shaped creature rise on 2 legs and will come at him. A Taney County farmer who saw a long-tailed figure standing upright on his fence line watching his livestock. About a family in the Boston Mountains of northern Arkansas who saw a silhouette on a ridge moving with a rolling, unnatural gait before dropping down to all fours. Then 2 Madison County brothers who faced down a creature across War Eagle Creek that stood its ground like a man and moved like a predator. Then back in Missouri, a Howell County teenager who saw a feline-headed figure standing upright near her barn before it glided away into the woods. A group of Crawford County teenagers who watched a creature leap down a bluff after standing upright in the moonlight. And a trucker from Ozark County who saw a tall, upright figure on the roadside take human-like steps into the fog before disappearing. 7 encounters, 7 stories, 7 descriptions of a creature that shouldn't exist, but keeps showing up anyway. And when you line them up side by side, something starts getting clear. These aren't just isolated sightings. They're not misidentifications, and they're not exaggerations. They're data points on a map. Data points that point toward a single, startling possibility. The Ozarks Howler, the creature that everyone thinks they know, might not be a one-off monster at all. It might be part of a larger, undiscovered lineage of feline-like predators, a species capable of both quadrupedal and bipedal movement, a species adapted to the deep hollows and dense forests of the Ozarks, a species that's been here longer than we have. But tonight we're not just going to tell stories, we're starting to build a case. A case that the Ozark Howler isn't just a myth, it's the tip of the iceberg. A case that the upright cat-like beings seen from Drury Mincy to the Boston Mountains of Arkansas are connected. A case that the Ozarks may be home to a predator we've never officially recognized. And tonight, we're stepping into the territory of the standing shadows. So let's start where this first pattern begins to take shape. Not with a blurry photo, not with a campfire rumor, but with a man alone in the woods. A man who knew every sound, every shadow, every animal that belonged in those woods. Our first story takes us to Newton County, Arkansas, deep in the early 1990s. A place where the ridgelines fold over each other like waves and the cedar thickets swallow the light before sunset. A place where hunters don't scare easy, and when the silence means something is watching. This is where one bow hunter followed a blood trail into a cedar stand and found something waiting for him. Something cat-like, something massive, something that rose onto 2 legs and walked toward him like it remembered how to be a human. This is an encounter that sets the tone for everything that follows. Robbie, you want to take us into segment 1?
Sure thing. Segment 1, Walk Like a Man. Newton County, Arkansas, in the early 1990s. The Ozarks Hollows around what was that? Parthenon? Is that how it's pronounced?
Parthenon.
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 Parthenon have a way of swallowing light. Even at dusk, the shadows come early, pulling under the cedars and turning the ridgelines into jagged silhouettes. A bow hunter named Mark was tracking a wounded deer through one of those hollers. Excuse me, the kind where the air feels heavy and the forest goes quiet for no reason that you can explain. He'd been following a blood trail nearly half an hour. The deer doubled back, crossed a dry creek bed, and slipped into a cedar thicket. Mark expected to find bedded down or expired. Instead, he found silence. Not the normal woods going still kind of silence, a pressure, a waiting. He raised his bow and scanned the thicket. That's when he saw it. At first, he thought it was the deer, dark shape, crouched low, partially hidden by the cedars. But as his eyes adjusted, the outline sharpened into something else entirely. A massive, cat-shaped animal, too thick in the shoulders to be a cougar, too long in the body to be a bear. Its fur was dark, black or deep brown, and bristled along its spine. Mark whispered, "What the hell?" The creature reacted. Slowly, deliberately, it rose onto its hind legs. Not like a bear rearing up in surprise. Not like a cat stretching, but like something that had done this before. Something that he knew, or something that knew how to balance and how to stand and how to look down on the thing that it was watching. It stood nearly as tall as a man, its front limbs hanging loosely, but with a tension that suggested power. Its head was unmistakably feline, broad muzzle, forward-facing eyes, ears that twitched independently. Mark froze. The creature took 3 slow, deliberate steps towards him. Still upright, its gait was wrong. Not human, not animal, but something in between. A rolling, almost gliding motion, like it was remembering how to walk like a man, but hadn't done it in a while. Then, without warning, it dropped to all fours in a single fluid motion and vanished into the brush so silently that Mark questioned whether it had been there at all. He didn't retrieve the deer that night. He didn't hunt that hollow again. And for years afterward, he described the creature the same way, like a panther that forgot how to be a cat. That's pretty profound. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
And that doesn't sound like a case of mistaken identity to me either.
no. Because he said it was, he hit the points. It was too broad and wide to be a cougar. His body was too long for it to be a bear. Distinctive canine head and ears, and stood up on hind legs, not like a bear rearing up when it gets surprised, like he said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was pretty adamant in his description of what it was not.
Right. And, the way he described it walking, clearly he got a good look at it.
Yep.
And you can put a picture of a cat, of a large cat, and a bear next to each other, and they're instantly recognizable as not being the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, and its ears moving independently of each other is definitely feline.
Yeah. But, and you think of that, just think of if you got a house cat, just think, you see them stand up on their hind legs, but it doesn't look like, it's not human like when they stand up. It's because their front leg, it's not like their front legs are hanging like arms, like he described. They're just kind of stuck in front of them unless they reach up to bat at something or whatever. But it doesn't look like, it looks like an animal that's supposed to walk on all fours, just kind of rearing up. It doesn't look like it's standing.
And that was like my dogman sighting in LBL. It looked like a dog on its hind legs, but I could definitely see a hand. So that's just bizarre. But I got kind of a theory. There's species of cats that when their ears are up, they have those long tufts of hair that stick up,
like a lynx or something like that.
Right. That could explain why people think they see horns.
That's not a bad theory.
I mean, that would explain why people have often said that it looked like a cat with horns sticking out of its head. And they would face back when its ears were up.
Yeah. If it pins its ears back, yeah. Honestly, that's a really good theory.
To me, that makes more sense than a cat with horns. Not that I'm saying that's impossible, but to somebody that'd never seen something like that, it would probably look like horns.
Well, and yeah, thinking, taking that and thinking about it, and thinking about when you've seen videos when a cat goes to hiss and it lays its ears back, especially like a lynx or something like that. If you picture that in your mind, and then you picture some of the artist renditions of a Ozarks Howler, the way those horns are laying, you can almost superimpose those two pictures together in your mind.
Because in a lot of the artwork and images I've seen of the Ozark Howler, the ears are back and it almost looked like the horns are right behind the ears.
Yeah.
So if they've got those long tufts of hair off the tips of their ears, especially if the tufts of hair don't quite match the rest of the coat, could very well explain why people have thought they've seen horns. Because that's not something you see on house cats or mountain lions or dogs. It's not something we normally see. But, that, and again, that's just, folks, these are just theories. I'm just spitting out possibilities. And to me, it makes sense. But also another thing he described in that, he's talked about how quietly it moved. A bear on its hind legs is not stealthy.
No.
They make a lot of racket because they're not designed to walk that way.
And another thing to that, when he described when it took steps forward, it was fluid. If you watch a bear walk on its hind legs, it's not anything but fluid. It's it's more of a waddle than it is anything else.
One thing to bear in mind about Newton County, Arkansas, is there are a lot of cougars spotted down there. There are a lot of bear encounters, but there's also a lot of unexplained screams coming from the woods. Things that people don't know what they are, and they're not recognizable as a mountain lion, a bobcat, or any of the above. But that place is loaded with thick woods and shadowed hollows with low visibility. Perfect breeding ground for something like this.
And another thing, if this is some type of feline, if the howler and these creatures are the same and they are some type of feline, the screams could be explained like that, because a lot of big cat growls, or whatever you want to call them, are described. Think of the bobcat, it sounds like a woman screaming, but if you upsize the bobcat's lung capacity and that size, who knows what the sound would actually sound like.
If we'd have discovered all of this before I wrote Lakeview Man, Beast of Blunk Road, that book would be very different.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm really leaning toward the howler being some sort of big cat, upright cat, or at least part-time upright cat. But to me, that just makes the most sense.
Like we've always said, just look in nature. A lot of chimps and gorillas and things like that can walk on two legs, but they also can move on four legs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility in nature for there to be things that can do both. So, it just may be more efficient one way than the other, but that doesn't mean that it can't do both.
Wyatt says, I've been growled at 2 times on our property in Newton County. We better not have no dang howler over there. Well, Wyatt, that's the Ozark National Forest, and if you remember correctly, that was allegedly set aside as a preserve for the Ozarks Howler by Teddy Roosevelt. So, if there's howlers in the area, I guarantee they're down that way.
Sorry, Wyatt.
Sorry, I hate to burst your bubble, Wyatt, but that would be ground zero for Ozarks Howler sightings.
And Toshi's got a good point. The howler could be a relic species of saber-tooth.
Yeah, very much could. or it could be something new that we haven't even seen before.
Yeah.
But we've often postulated that Dogman might be descended from
Dire wolves.
dire wolves that just learned to use their paws like hands. Because I've seen dogs that can grip things with their front paws. I've seen it happen. It's weird to watch, but if a house dog could learn to do it, and something that learned to do it millennia ago and taught its offspring how to do it, eventually those would start becoming more useful. But then again, we've got thousands of years of sightings of the cynocephali. But what kind of musculature would allow a creature to stand up and walk like that without wobbling? It would have to be adaptive.
Yeah. I mean, but like I said, going back to the examples that we already have, I mean, that type of musculature from the great apes supports that. So, I mean, it's already in nature. It's already there. It's already been witnessed and documented and all that stuff. So, I mean, why not for canine and felid species?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Eric, you're right.
There's a dog.
Good to see you, brother. Glad you're here tonight.
There's a dog that is on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok that people I don't know if it was born that way or if it had some kind of injury, but it doesn't have any front legs, and it's taught itself to walk on its hind legs, and it's very mobile. So I mean, like I said, things are possible whether we want to believe that or not.
Exactly.
And look at that bear.
Yeah. Well, the way that thing took steps toward him, to me, that sounds territorial and aggressive. It was wanting him to either back off or suffer the consequences.
Highly curious, if nothing else. But I think maybe with it running off like it did, maybe it started off being territorial or aggressive, and then when he didn't back off right away, maybe that's when it kind of called its bluff, so to speak, and it took off. Which is just other than the fact he was just frozen fear, most people would have turned tail and run.
Yeah, I would have backed my ass out of there for sure. I think you mentioned that it had a rolling gait. That kind of sticks with me. Yeah. Which describes kind of a fluidity of movement, which is definitely feline.
Yeah. Like I said, if you watch cats and watch them move, it's amazing to watch how graceful and predatory they can be all in the same motion. I mean, watching a big cat hunt, it's awe-inspiring because they clearly do, and even down to your normal house cats and barn cats. I mean, cats were built to do one thing. They were designed to do one thing, and they do it very well.
They're predators.
Mm-hmm.
On a big scale. So do you think that the upright movement is a defensive behavior or something else?
I don't know, because I think it's probably a mix of curiosity and maybe a dominance display. Stand up on your hind legs and you're bigger than, or at least as big as whatever you're facing, so to speak. So maybe it's just a mix of both, or all three rather.
She's got a good point. She says, I mean, look at how well balanced a house cat is when they're walking along the edge of something. Like specifically, I've seen cats walk along the top edge of a door, which is very impressive. So now if they were to evolve to walk bipedally, they wouldn't have as much issue with balance. Yeah, they're naturally balanced. So,
yeah, well, you take any normal house cat and you put it outside, cats are going to adapt and become more like their, primitive ancestors quicker than dogs will. you take a dog that's been in the house all its life, it's going to take it longer to adapt and learn how to hunt and survive than it is a cat that's been in the house all its life. And to me, that's just speaks to how they were designed.
Josh Dalton says, just took a quick look at the American lion. There are some of the pics show tufts of hair that could be mistaken for horns. Well, that's interesting. William Nighthawk says, took care of a mountain lion. He was 140 pounds, named Charlie. You learn a lot from wildlife. Tails are used to help balance them.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Lone Queen says, don't most of these canine and feline creatures actually have really heavy tails that would work? But yeah, exactly. Work out well for a counterbalance.
Well, I mean, that's how cheetahs change direction so fast when they're running. They have longer tails than most of the other bigger cat species. They use that tail as a rudder because it's a counterbalance and a rudder. Because if their tails were shorter, they couldn't turn on a dime like they do.
Right. Well, this is a very interesting story. So what happened in that cedar thicket in Newton County isn't just an isolated moment. It isn't a one-off anomaly or just some hunter's tall tale. It was the first crack in a pattern that starts to look a lot less like coincidence once you follow it north into Missouri. Just across the state line in the rolling hills outside Kissy Mills, another witness saw something disturbingly similar. Not in the deep woods, not miles from civilization, but right at the edge of his own pasture, where the tree line meets the fence line, where the livestock graze and where the predators watch. And on a quiet night in the early 2000s, a farmer stepped outside to check on his dogs and found a tall, upright figure standing just beyond the fence, a figure with a long tail, a feline head, and a posture no known animal in the Ozarks should have. And that will lead us into the next one, which is in Taney County, which, well, any of you guys know, that is right on the border. That is like Branson area, all the way down to the Arkansas border. The hills outside of Kissy Mills are quiet at night. The kind of quiet that makes every sound feel amplified. Coyotes yip in the distance, owls call from the treetops, and the wind moves through the pines like a whisper. But on this particular night, the silence was broken by something else entirely. A farmer named Bill was jolted awake around 2 a.m. by his dogs, not barking, but snarling. A deep, guttural warning he'd only heard once before when a black bear wandered too close to the property. He grabbed his spotlight and stepped out onto the porch. The dogs were at the fence line, hackles raised, staring into the tree line like they were looking at the devil himself. Bill swept the spotlight across the pasture, and that's when he saw it. A tall, dark figure standing upright just beyond the fence. At first glance, he thought it was a person, maybe a trespasser or a poacher, but the longer he stared, the more the shape betrayed that assumption. The figure's shoulders were too high, too rounded. Its torso tapered like a big cat, not a human. And behind it, barely visible in the beam of light, a long tail curled and flicked. Bill froze. The creature didn't move at first. It just stood there, upright, watching him. The posture was wrong, too balanced, too steady. Not a bear rearing up, not a human standing still, something in between. Then it turned its head. The motion was unmistakably feline. Smooth, low, predatory. The kind of head turn you see in a mountain lion right before it decides whether you're prey or a threat. Bill's breath caught in his throat. The creature took a single upright step toward the fence. The dogs went wild, barking and lunging, but refusing to cross the boundary. Then, in one fluid motion, the creature dropped to all fours. Not like a bear, not like a human falling, but like a cat. A massive, heavy-bodied cat, shifting into its natural stance. It glided in the woods with a grace that made Bill's stomach twist. No crashing, no snapping branches, just silence. The next morning, Bill found tracks in the soft dirt near the fence. They were wide, heavy, and wrong. Not human, not bear, not cougar, something in between, something he couldn't identify. He never saw the creature again, but the dogs never went near that fence line at night for months after that. What do you always say? Listen to your dogs?
Trust your dogs.
Trust your dogs. So clearly it was comfortable on its hind legs.
Yeah, because it stood there for a hot minute, just looking at him. So, but that says to me that they don't travel upright on two legs, because both, at least in both of these accounts, before they like exited stage left, they went down on all fours.
That would explain why so many people, when they see them, if they see him at all, report him on all fours.
Yep. So I would assume that this is something that, you know, if they're fighting, or if they're, you know, curious and looking at something, this is an attribute that they have. But I wouldn't say it's a normal way that they move all the time. But they've adapted to do that.
Right. Again, they described a long cat-like tail.
Mm-hmm.
Which immediately gets rid of the bear theory.
Yeah, I don't know too many bears with long tails, long swishing and flicking tails.
Right, that's cat-like.
Yeah.
So, again, what is it?
Well, I mean, like we said in the other show, I mean, you can definitely speculate that there's a lot of attributes that line up with howler sightings.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of attributes that line up with the upright bipedal cat creatures too. So I think this is leaning towards this is the same creature, and it's just been a lot of, you know, a lot of times people might see it on all fours, and a lot of times people are seeing it on two legs, and then, but these two stories right here have the combination of both. They've seen them on two legs and running off on all fours. So,
and the American lion is a great possibility. I mean, they were big, they were very powerfully built, and some of the images that Josh Dalton was finding showed them with tufts of hair on their ears. He sent me the images, but they're only let me view them in the mobile app, so I can't pull them up on the computer. Don't know why. It's weird that they're doing that, but that's Facebook for you. Oh. But the head turn, the way its head turned, very cat-like.
Let me see if I can find you some, send them in the co-host chat right quick.
Okay. Well, we also know there's other species like the lynx that have those tufts of hair, so it's not unheard of.
Yeah.
PW112473 says, if there's dogmen and cat people, what other bipedal humanoid animal-like creatures can be out there? Hog people? Well, according to the Egyptians, there were crocodile heads and had people with heads of the birds, and so I don't know. I can't answer that. God knows what's out there that we've either been, blind about observing or lied to by our own government about what's actually out there. The reaction of the dogs is pretty telling, because much like you with your dogs, Harley will bark at a mailman or if he hears somebody in the yard, but if he's growling, I take notice. He doesn't growl very often. Yeah, Josh, I did. It had those rounded shoulders. So the American lion is certainly in that size category, because people who've seen the howler describe it as being a cat-like creature the size of a bear. That would certainly fit with the American lion. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, while you were talking, I couldn't find any that I could pull up to send to you, but I found one size comparison, and it was a human standing on on two legs, standing next to a Volkswagen Beetle, and then a cave lion, and the cave lion shoulders were above the top of the roof of the Volkswagen Beetle, and it was longer than the Volkswagen Beetle.
So on its hind legs, easily 8, 9, 10 feet tall.
Oh yeah.
Hey, what's a doc fond of saying? That's a big unit.
That's a big youngin.
Hybrid tracks. He said, wide, heavy, with unusual pressure points are reoccurring in howler lore. Hybrid tracks, somewhere between man and cat, is what I was discovering. What did we talk about with the dogman tracks? How the heel pad was elongated?
Yep.
It would have to have something, some sort of adaptation like that, for it to be able to balance well on its hind legs. So it's probably got that heel pad is probably significantly elongated.
Well, I mean, I think it would probably have to be, and that's probably just an adaptive thing, that for it to stand up like that, it couldn't stand up if their hind legs had not adapted to standing up like that. It would be hard for them to stand up, and I mean, they could stand up, but they wouldn't be able to move. So I would think they would have to have some kind of, their back foot is elongated for when they stand up to help them balance and move around.
Yeah.
That it would just make sense, structurally. We may have a dock site in here in just a little bit.
Oh, cool. The way it was watching the livestock, that's predatory behavior.
Absolutely.
That's certainly something like a big cat would do.
But it also shows intelligence that it didn't cross the fence because of the dogs.
Yeah. And the dogs would only go so far and would not go into the wood line.
Yep.
So he might not have seen it again, but that doesn't mean it left the area.
True.
There's another thing. Taney County, Combs Ferry is in Taney County, Robbie. Drury Mincy is in Taney County. We know for a fact those woods are dense enough to support something like that.
Yep. When you pulled up
plenty
the map,
of water, plenty of food.
Yeah, you pulled up the map, and it was definitely a very scarcely populated area.
Right. Not a lot of people in that area. Even though Branson is a tourist attraction, at its best, I think Branson's population is about 4,000. It is not very big.
No.
I'm going to look that up because I know it's not very high. Okay, according to the most recent census, the population of Branson is about 12,000, so it's bigger than I thought it was.
But still, not in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big metropolis.
Yeah, that's about the size of Lebanon was when I grew up there. It's about 18,000 now, I think, but even 12,000 people in an area that big, that's not a lot of people.
No. Well, that's like, look at places like Montana and Wyoming. Those places are so vast. If they've got 30,000 people spread out over, that might be a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people compared to the size of the area.
Right. And most of those people live in town. There just aren't a whole lot of farms left in those areas anymore. PW, you might have a point there. He says maybe they also have an extra joint in their legs to switch from four-legged to two, or at least a swivel joint in their ankle where they can operate both ways.
There again, think about an eagle. I know it's not what the animal we're talking about, but you're just talking about things that animals have that allow them to do other things. When a big storm comes in, eagles don't land and ride it out like most birds. Eagles, they have air sacs inside their lungs that operate like scuba tanks for us under the water. While they're down cruising around, they'll fill those air sacs up with oxygen. And if a storm comes in, they will hit up to about 20,000 feet above the storm. And they have a joint in their wings that when they push their wings forward, those joints lock in place, and they can just keep their wings stretched out. I mean, they could keep them stretched out indefinitely if they wanted to. Obviously they'd eventually going to run out of that oxygen, but they will just cruise without flapping their wings for however long the storm is, and just cruise the thermal drafts and not expend any energy at all. That's an amazing adaptation.
That is a hell of an adaptation. Kay Bowers had a great comment. He said, DA off topic, but not. Are the areas with the most cryptid sightings correlated to the missing 411 clusters? Not necessarily. Most reported sightings occur in rural areas, clearly, but there are far more like sightings near farms and near homes in the woods and stuff like that than there are actual reported sightings inside the national parks. Which leads me to believe that a lot of the stuff that gets reported in national parks probably never gets officially reported, if you know what I mean.
Yep, and like we've always said, the transient population, how many of those go missing and never get reported?
Or,
or part of the number
yeah.
that we will never even know.
Exactly. Or that they get reported as something else entirely. It was a runaway that we have no accounting for. They just dismiss it as a teenager who ran away, or an adult with dementia that just wandered off and couldn't be found. A lot of this stuff gets reported as something completely different, which skewers the numbers. But Robbie, have you ever had a dog or a cat react to something you couldn't see?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Creepy feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, cats do it all the time. They'll start staring at something, and you're looking like, what are you staring at?
Cats can see in a part of the visible light spectrum that we can't.
And they're just locked in on something, and you're like, what are you looking at? But yeah, and dogs will do it too. Dogs will bark at stuff, and you look out the window and you don't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
I've taken Harley out in our backyard even recently. There are nights that he will go out and just wander the backyard for 20 minutes before he comes back in, just sniffing and taking care of his business. Then there's other nights when he will go out there and he will not leave the light of the porch. I don't know why. You can't get him to leave the light of the porch. He'll do everything he needs to do within that cone of light, and then he's right back in the house. And those are the nights that I worry something might actually be in the neighborhood. I don't know what, because we live in town, but there are nights I've gone in that backyard and just had a very uneasy feeling, which is why I don't go out there unarmed. Roxanne says, especially if cats want a treat. Mine is staring at me for treats. Harley does that too. He'll go set because we've got a big green Tupperware canister that seals that we put all his dog treats in, and he will go set by the shelf where it's at the kitchen, and he'll just stare at it, and then once in a while he'll look at you, and then he'll look back at the treat like, do you want a treat? Are you trying to tell me something? But yeah, animals are intelligent, man. Animals are smart. So just theoretically, this is a good question for everybody. Be they, everybody in the chat, even you, Robbie. What would you do if you saw a person in the tree line that turned out it wasn't a person?
Well, you know what I would do.
I know what we do. We just hope that the Robbie Wrangler is on hand.
Let's go check that out.
Lead-laced. I try to avoid getting a high-powered flashlight out and scanning my yard because my light's really bright and it pisses the neighbors off when I'm out there at 2 a.m. lighting up houses. Jeremy Lee says, could be your surveillance bush. Could be.
Changing shifts.
Well, there we go. Eric said, I've heard of Bigfoot and Dogman sightings not far from you, closer to the Glenstone Division area. Well, that would make sense because they would be able to get in and out of town real easy because of that big storm drain that runs from Division. It goes under streets. It goes through neighborhoods. There's a massive storm drain it was actually an old creek, but they've widened it and concreted it. That storm drain runs for miles. That'd be an easy way for something, especially at night, to move unseen.
Yeah, I mean, and go ahead.
Northwood says, one night I woke up on the living room couch and my dog was growling at the window. When I turned and looked, I saw she was growling at the trees blowing in the wind. Sometimes dogs bark at nothing, but sometimes you got to take warning. I mean, especially if they're persistent about it. I've learned to listen to Harley because I can tell the difference between his go away bark and his what the hell is that.
Well, that's perfect case because, and you know this, you've heard this, most of you in the chat. Cap barks at just about anything. I mean, the wind can blow by the window, and Cap goes nuts about it. If Bucky starts barking, then I pay attention because Bucky doesn't bark at anything.
Yeah.
If he starts barking, then that's when I'm like, okay, and I can definitely tell the difference between their barks. So if he's barking, then I'm like, excuse me a second.
Good catch, Miss Lene. Yes, I did talk about that storm drain in the Ragnarok series.
Yep.
What do you think? Do you think that thing was stalking his livestock, or that it stood there as a warning to the farmer?
I think it was probably because he wasn't out there when the dog started, so I think it was probably eyeing the livestock. In my opinion, I don't think it really regarded him other than when he came out and started shining a light on it, and then it moved off.
Nick, that's a good question because there are sightings here in Springfield of what people say was Bigfoot raiding trash cans, especially behind restaurants.
I've had reports of that restaurant just up the road from me, the Clock. I had a guy that was telling me that he was a over the road trucker, and he get in at all hours of the day and night, and he said there's a lot of times when he would come in and pull his truck in, he'd get out and he'd kind of be messing around in his truck, and he'd hear something hit that dumpster, and it'd be like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would hear something be messing around and moving that dumpster and hitting it and banging it around. And that's I mean, I don't live in the city obviously, but there are businesses and things around here, and that's kind of,
well, you know where we keep the dumpster in front of our house.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there by that motion light. I woke up because you know how I have to sleep in the recliner because of my back. I sleep in the living room. I woke up because I heard that our plastic dumpster lid drop. And I know no cat's not lifting that lid up. I've gone out there a couple times and that motion light was on, but there was nothing there. So I've just, often thought maybe it was some homeless guy or a raccoon or something, but I've never seen anything getting into it. But I've heard that trash can close, and I've gone out there at times and seen that motion light on and can't explain why. Because it's not super sensitive. I mean, the neighbor's cats don't set it off.
When you ever go out there and it's hanging off the side of the house like that one was in Gatlinburg, you'll know.
Or find it halfway across the yard smashed.
Yeah, that too.
Eric says, don't forget all the high and low railroad tracks that run through Springfield. Yeah, there's a railroad track about like just 2-3 blocks from my house that goes straight out of town. We got like 5 minutes until we got to do the commercials. So I'm going to go ahead and set up for the next story, and then we'll break for commercials, and then we'll come back and start the next story. So what happened on that fence line in Taney County wasn't just another strange sighting. It was the second time in 2 different states, in 2 different decades, that someone described a creature standing upright with a long tail and a feline head. But the pattern doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at the tree line. It climbs higher. It moves into the ridges, and it steps into the moonlight. Because our next encounter takes us to the Boston Mountains of northern Arkansas, one of the most rugged, isolated stretches in the entire Ozarks. A place where the ridges rise like black waves and the valley swallows sound. A place where on a warm summer night in the 1970s, a group of teenagers saw what they were never able to forget. A silhouette on a ridge, tall, upright, balanced, with a long tail curling behind it like a question mark. And when it moved, it didn't move like a person. It didn't move like a bear. It moved with a rolling, gliding gait that no known animal in the Ozarks should have. And the first two encounters showed us that a predator can stand upright. This one shows us that a predator chooses the high ground and isn't afraid to be seen. So we're going to be, when we dive into this next one, yeah, I think you guys are really gonna like this one a lot, because the Boston Mountains. I don't know if Wyatt has been over in the Boston Mountains, but there is not much more rugged terrain you can find anywhere in the Ozarks. It's not in, but it's not in either of those national forests. It is close to the Ozark National Forest, but it's actually not in it. Those mountains, however. Here's a good thing that Robbie's going to find. You know, one of those. What do you call that? One of those movements. The foothills, the foothills of the Boston Mountains, but right up against the foothills of the Ouachitas. And why do we know that name?
Yeah. Very interesting.
So, definite habitat for things like this. Have you guys watched that show Mountain Men? Did you watch Mountain Men?
Yep, sure did.
The one guy that made knives that lived in Arkansas, he was in the Boston Mountains.
The old guy or the guy from
the younger guy that made knives?
Yeah,
he passed away of cancer, by the way.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yep, Lene got it.
Odin's Call. Yeah. And the Kiamichis are right there. They're part of the Ouachitas, which takes us right into the territory around Honaby, Oklahoma, and also the Light Horseman incident with the Tubby brothers. Yep. That's all right there in that area, fairly close by one another.
Broken Bow Lake, that it?
Yep, Broken Bow Lake, and that's a big lake. I think Broken Bow's every bit as big as Table Rock.
Also, not far from the Heavener Stone either.
Not very far from the Heavener Runestone. So, what the dots we're connecting here tonight, folks? We're trying to paint a better picture of the possibility that these upright cat creatures that people have seen in Drury Mency and across the Ozarks are likely related to the Ozarks Howler. And to me, that would make more sense than there being 25 different cryptids running around out here. That I would think that a lot of this actually overlaps, and we're looking at just a handful of creatures, not necessarily 8 to 10 different creatures. If that makes sense. What do you think, Robbie?
When we first started when we did our Drury Mency show, and we started kind of piecing that together, I've been thinking about that ever since. And I think it just stands to reason that it's one type of creature that's just been sighted in multiple, poses, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because you really can't overlap a lot of the behaviors.
All right. Well, I think we are safe to say that it is time for us to take a pause to pay the bills. We will be right back with you guys after a few brief words from some of our sponsors and our supporters. And if you want to stretch your legs, grab a drink, go ahead to the restroom. Any business you need to take care of, we will be back with you in just a few minutes. We'll be right back, folks.
The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unnext Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with D.A. Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. In a world where monsters still walk the earth, one author dares to face them. From the brutal cryptid horror of the Apex Predator series to the Ozark legends that stalk the night in Lakeview Man, from the elite warriors of codename Wild Hunt to the relentless investigations of the Nightmare Hunter and the frontier terror of Dark Frontiers. When the dead rise, the Ragnarok Rising saga unleashes pure zombie apocalypse fury. And across the stars, war rages in the Lost Legion and Man's Marauders. And in the realm of myth and steel, the world of Vanguard calls to those born for legend. Cryptids, zombies, sci-fi warfare, epic fantasy. This is the universe of D.A. Roberts.
And folks, we are back with a surprise appearance from none other than Kerry Pocket Doc Davis. Doc, how the heck are you, brother? Salute.
I am rolling.
Slanja.
America.
Well, I'm glad you could make it, Doc. We were trying to carry on without you, but I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, it was a long day. I appreciate it, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We're all praying for you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I need it.
You got a copy of the show notes handy?
I do. What segment are we on, sir?
Segment 3. If you want to pick up with segment 3, Robbie and I have each done one.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Let me come through here and see if I can find it. Let me see here. So this is going to be the ridgetop silhouette.
Yeah, let me take this question before we cover that. Steve Payton says, what makes Missouri and Arkansas the only place these critters are seen? Is it because of the vast expanse of woodlands and large amounts of food? Maybe. I think it probably ultimately at the end of the day has something to do with the fact that the Ozarks, the hills and mountains of the Ozarks, are some of the oldest mountains on the planet. These rivers and valleys and canyons and mountains are older than the Rockies. They're older than the Appalachians. I think these things have just been here for a very long time and never left. But that's just my thought. Hey, Doc. Doc, quit playing with your wiener on the show.
Oh, I love petting my little wiener.
Run away, weenie Doc.
Slobbered all over my freaking glasses. All right. So here we go. Okay. Calm down there. homie. All right. Okay, so here we go. So, what happened on the fence line in Taney County wasn't just another strange sighting. It was the
We're past that, Doc.
okay.
Sorry.
I thought it says incident 3.
Right. Segment 3 is where you're wanting to go.
The second 3. Okay, this one is called the Ridgetop Silhouette. Now, this occurs in the Boston Mountains of Arkansas in the 1970s. And the Boston Mountains are beautiful by day. Rolling ridges, deep hollows, forests so thick that they feel ancient. But at nighttime, those same ridges turn into jagged black teeth against the sky. Shadows are stretched long, sounds echo strangely, and the moonlight will play tricks on the eyes. Now, a father and his 3 kids were camping near White Rock Mountain on a warm summer night. They had finished dinner, the fire was burning low, and the kids were lying on their backs, pointing out different constellations. The father was enjoying the rare quiet, listening to the cicadas hum and the wind move through the pines. Then, the youngest child sat up suddenly. Dad, someone's on the ridge. The father followed her gaze. Across the valley, on the crest of a ridge illuminated by the full moon, stood a tall, upright figure. At first, he thought it was another hiker or another camper, but something about the posture was wrong. It was too rigid or too balanced, too still. And he squinted at it. Excuse me. The silhouette shifted. The head was wrong, the shoulders were wrong, and behind it, unmistakable, at that distance, a long tail curled and flicked. Now, the father's breath caught because that was definitely wrong. The creatures took a step upright, and the motion was unnatural, not human or not bear. The kind of rolling, gliding gait that made the silhouette seem to float more than it walked. And the kids whispered nervously, asking what it was. What is that? He didn't have an answer. The dad did not have an answer. The creature paused at the ridge's edge as if it was listening, and the forest went still. Even the insects quieted, kind of like we talked about in several other shows, where that mute button or that volume is just turned down on nature. And then in a single fluid motion, the creature dropped down to all fours. It didn't stumble. It didn't fall. It transitioned like a big cat shifting into its natural form. Then it leapt down the slope, moving with a speed and agility that no human could match. And the family watched in stunned silence as it vanished into the trees. Now, a moment later, a howl rose from the valley floor, deep and resonant and powerful enough to vibrate the air. It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't a cougar. And it wasn't anything the father had ever heard in decades of hunting those same mountains. The kids begged to leave. The father did not argue. They packed up in record time and drove down the mountain without looking back. And for years afterward, the family told the story the same way. It wasn't a man. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cat. It was something else. I mean, the big old curly tail would have been one of my first clues that, hey, you know what? I think we might need to get the heck out of here.
It's 1:30 to get the heck out of Dodge.
Now, and Hatton, and correct me if I'm wrong, DA, has not ED reported some creatures kind of like that around his place?
Yeah, there is an ongoing investigation. One I'm going to be joining him soon. A farmer, I can't tell you any of the details because this is Eric's investigation. Mm-hmm. But a farmer near his farm reported a large upright feline. Now,
the Boston Mountains in Arkansas, how far is that from all this area?
It's pretty far.
Okay.
They're in northwestern Arkansas.
Okay.
Easily 120, 130 miles from me, maybe a little more. But interesting about the Boston Mountains is what Robbie and I were talking about before the break, was that the foothills of the Boston Mountains run into the foothills of the Ouachita Mountains.
I was just about to ask you about that.
They're right on top of one another almost.
So it's basically in the southwestern corner of Missouri and going to the northwestern area of Oklahoma.
Right. The Boston Mountains are right there in that corner of Arkansas, right where Missouri and Oklahoma meet it.
Wow. Okay. So what kind of range are we talking about with these creatures?
Well, mountain lions have got almost a 200-mile range.
Right. And
so
then,
an animal bigger than a mountain lion would probably need a bigger range.
right. Yeah, because I mean they're gonna require. I would estimate from a scientific standpoint they're going to require more caloric intake to maintain, their good stuff, their even balance.
We
Right.
speculated that a family, whatever you want to call them, tribe, group, whatever, of Bigfoots would probably anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 square mile range.
Wow.
But if these are like other big cats, only lions hunt in prides.
Mhm.
Most other big cats are solitary, with the exception of mountain lion females when they have cubs.
And the cubs go with them to learn how to hunt.
Right. And once they're old enough, they're off on their own.
Right. Just like a mama bear and her baby bears. Okay, that's interesting. So from everything we're talking about, like I said, that curly tail. So they saw it from a distance, right? And it was upright, and then it transitioned to all fours. So,
And like the other two stories, they talked about the fluid, smooth movement of the way it walked, almost like it was gliding. And that's very much cat-like.
right, because they got a very, very, it's almost like their head's on a freaking gimbal or something. You know what I mean? When they're walking.
To be honest, that's kind of what Steve and I saw the other night on our way out to Eric's place. I tried to get it on camera, but it was gone too fast. On the way out and on the way back from Eric's, when we went out to check on his animals, we saw something at the edge of the headlights on the gravel road leading up to Eric's house. We saw something cat-like but big, too big to be a regular cat, crossing the road. I wish Steve was here, he could tell you about it too. But we both saw it.
And didn't you say, you'd said that the other night when we went live?
Right.
Didn't you say it was black in color?
Yeah, it was completely black.
Okay. All right.
Whatever it was, it moved like a cat, but it was way too big to be a house cat or even like a cougar. It was pretty good size. And that night that we saw something cross the road in the cornfields, this is back in 22, when my wife and Noah and his friend, my adopted son Connor, when all four of us saw it cross from one cornfield to another crossing in front of us, it also moved like a cat, was dark colored, had the big ropey tail like a cat, but easily its shoulders stood up higher than the front of our SUV.
Wow.
And I threw the car in park and started to get out. That's when Annette grabbed me by the arm and said, "Douglas Allen, don't you get out of this car." I know I'm in trouble when I hear my full first and middle name.
Yeah.
It's like, you are not going after that. I'm like, well, why not?
And whatever that was, if it was as big at his shoulders as taller than the front end of your car, that's a big whatever it was.
Roxanne says, from what showed up on your phone, because I was streaming when it crossed the second time, and I whipped that camera around for them to see it. I didn't know if they were actually able to see anything. She said it looked pretty big, so the camera did catch something.
Wow, that's insane.
I was on a video chat with the mods. Kay Bauer says, when you said big ropey tail, I thought of marsupilami. What's that?
Oh.
Jeremy Lee says, could explain the Black Panther reports in your area. There have been a lot of Black Panther reports. DA, what state was it in? What we saw the other night are these stories. These stories have all taken place in either Missouri or Arkansas, very near the Missouri-Arkansas border. But what we saw the other night was up by Elkland, Missouri, half hour, 45 minutes away from me.
So I mean, yeah, that's a pretty large territory right there.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
When we saw it the first time crossing the road in front of us, first thing I thought was mountain lion because it moved like a cat, but it was completely black and it was freaking big. It was bigger than a cat, bigger than a mountain lion. And it disappeared into a stand of trees right next to a trailer.
Wow. What are you doing, dude? Now you want to?
Just a guy who yaps says, DA, you said completely black, right? Is there not a surge in panther sightings in the southern states? There have been. There have been quite a few. Even in our area, there have been seem to be on the rise lately. In fact, there was even a daytime sighting of a large black panther by a trucker out by Fordland just a few months ago. PW says, could you imagine coming across two of these cats fighting? I know one thing. I'm staying out of that fight.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard two bobcats fighting, and I'm going to tell you what, son, that is a terrifying sound.
Yeah. Well,
Nick Bohr has a good point.
Yeah.
Nick that we hung out with in Salina, Robbie, he says, okay, let's flip the coin. What if the video you took was not a dog man, was one of these cats? The head, to me, it looked canine, but Eric says could be the strange things I've been hearing around here.
Could very well be. Now has Eric, since you're in chat, and good to see you in chat, brother. Have you seen any big feline tracks around your place, or just?
And Carmen, the answer is yes. Well, the one that he told me about, that I showed you guys that picture.
Yeah,
that was just down the road from his house.
And that was a weird track, man.
Like not even a mile.
Yeah, that was a really strange track.
Wendell says he saw two in the daytime near him in Alabama. So they're out there. But what Steve and I saw that night crossing the road was way too big to be a mountain lion.
Mm-hmm.
Steve was, I think at that point, Steve was ready to turn the car around and go home. He's like, dude, if I was out here by myself, I would be leaving. He said, but I'm definitely not letting you go by yourself. I'm like, well, good, because I don't want to be out here by myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you, dude. And so especially if you hear that howl. So I don't know. I didn't hear the earlier part of the show. Did they all have all these encounters described a similar type of howl, or is this the only one that had a howl on it?
These were all flagged because the howl was tagged as possibly an Ozarks Howler.
Gotcha.
So these are upright upright feline sightings that correspond with Ozark Howler reports.
Interesting.
We're trying to speculate that maybe the Ozark Howler, instead of it being some kind of hybrid between all, is maybe all these feline creatures that have been, maybe that's what
it's like at Drury Mincy and other places. Mm-hmm. And we also put forth the idea that maybe what they're describing as horns on the Ozarks Howler was just big tufts of hair on the cat's ears, like certain like species of cats have.
Yep, yeah, like a lynx.
Yeah,
exactly. Which, especially if the hair was a different color than the rest of the coat, would probably look like horns, especially at night.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, bobcats even have little tufts up there too.
What they call them lynx in Amet County, Doc? Souped up wildcats.
Souped up wildcats. Lord, shoot this thing.
That's some Jerry Clower right there. I heard Amet County, and I knew exactly. That's right. Original county of Adams.
Marcel Udell.
Claude
Eugene, and Clovis.
Can't forget RL and Raynell.
That's right.
Raynell, Linnell.
But the howls on these things do get described as very much like the howler. That deep, resonant, almost woman screaming quality to it. Much more powerful than would be normally produced by a mountain lion or a bobcat. It would also be described as like feeling it in your bones.
Again, I wonder if they have some infrasound to them.
A lot of big cats do.
Yeah,
tigers do for sure.
Yeah, it is not uncommon in big cats. It's not unheard of. I mean, not uncommon.
You are all full of piss and vinegar, ain't you?
And every one of these stories that we've talked about so far are all from people that had nothing to gain by telling a crazy animal story.
Right.
In fact, they weren't even presented as, oh, you guys aren't going to believe this. These were just, these people told a few folks, and like, I don't know what the heck this thing was. Didn't want any notoriety out of it. They just wanted to know what they'd seen.
Well, the father and 3 kids all saw it, and the father wasn't sitting there with a big old bottle of Who Hit John. You know what I mean? So he wasn't having liquor vision. So, I mean, I'm just saying.
Hey, buddy.
You like that?
I got a visit from my Harley.
Would you?
The Bat Mom says, I lived completely off grid in Ozark County. You always felt like you're being watched. Always weird noises coming from everywhere, but still quieter than the city. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to live someplace like that. Toshi says, howl like that sounds like something a lion or some kind of big cat would make. Yeah. Kay Bauer says, be like that video of the cop out searching. Hear that and just go back to the car.
120%, brother.
Yep, this is not covered under my jurisdiction.
Yep.
I'm not out here to arrest whatever the heck that is. I'm leaving.
Yep. We're back in service.
Yeah. We're calling this HBO'd, handled by officer, back in service. Eric says, that explains the strange female-like screams I was hearing. It exactly does, dude.
Yep.
Well, like I said, you scale up a bobcat's howl, scream, whatever you want to call it, scale it up to the size of what we're talking about here. What's it going to sound like?
Yeah.
I mean, something to think about.
PW says, we live out in Fordland and might have to keep an eye out. I definitely would. I mean, there was a daytime sighting of a large black panther by a trucker down that way. Just a few, I think it was back during the summer. So it was like 6 months ago. But I remember, I think it made the paper. I think that's where I heard about it. But the similarities in these 3 stories we've talked about so far are striking, especially since none of these people ever talked to one another.
Well, and you got one that happened in the 70s, one that happened in the 90s. I mean,
yeah,
chances of these people talking to each other and getting together and saying, hey, let's go tell this story.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would also explain why most Ozarks Howler sightings are seen on all 4s, but because they're probably not on 2 legs often.
Yeah, like we said earlier for Dot Join, it's probably a mix of they use that for curiosity when they're trying to get a better view of what they're looking at, territorial display, that dominance thing, or pre-attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and again, with a big tail, the way they described, that's not a bear. So that's not a misidentified bear. Right off the bat, we can eliminate that. Mountain lions don't walk on their hind legs.
Right. And something I've noticed in a lot of these encounters that we've been talking about on these shows, where do people spot these things at in these hilly areas? Up on a ridge line.
On the ridge lines.
So that way they have a better vantage point for what they're.
Well, if they're any kind of relation to a mountain lion or any kind of big cat, they're ambush predators.
Yep. We just had a lady up in northern Colorado not even 2 weeks ago, out on a hiking trail, got killed by a big cat.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Chris Artigue says, are there Native American stories of these things? Yes, there are. Although right off the top of my head, I can't remember what they're called. But William Nighthawk was showing us just the other night about a drawing of a Native American spirit that the Lakota talk about. Let me see if I've still got that image, and I will bring it up.
Look at the Wampus cat. That fits into that perfectly.
It really does. I didn't even think about that. That's an excellent point.
What did I do with that picture? Huh. It's looking like I lost the... Oh, no, there it is. Okay. I was got to be upset with myself. I said, surely I didn't delete that.
The old you just delete us.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the image that William sent me. And I will put this up. If I can remember how to do it. But this is a creature from the Lakota stories.
Ooh.
That size depiction of DA, the picture I was telling you about, I looked up with the cave line. That's about the size comparison that they were showing up between the Volkswagen, the human, and the cave line.
You boys notice a detail on this? Look at the way its front paw is.
Back. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's like it's rolled them up on its knuckles like Tarzan.
Good night. And that's the height of it right there is where that dude's head is. It's coming up the rear end of it.
Yep. And that does match a lot of descriptions as the Ozarks Howler.
Now,
if you right here, if you were to add tufts of hair sticking up off those ears like a lynx, I think that these kind of make. But here's something else weird too. Look at the coloration on the snout, like a mandrill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look around the eyes and that side view.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing has to be dang near 18 foot tall.
Yeah, it's going to be big.
I'd definitely say that matches the description of a souped up wildcat. Wouldn't you say, Doc?
That is definitely a souped up wildcat.
That wildcat's got a 3/4 cam and some nitrous.
That thing got a Hemi in it.
You ain't lying. God.
Whoa.
That's huge, dude.
Yeah. And that's a creature from Lakota legends. So yes, the Native Americans do have legends of creatures like that. And here's the thing. I know the Lakota are a plains tribe from up like the Black Hills area. I know that. But the Osage are a Missouri tribe. They're all over this area throughout Arkansas. They covered a big chunk of the Ozarks. The Osage were all over this area. And the Osage are a Sioux tribe. They're related to the Lakota.
Man. And so that legend goes back many years. Now,
Correct, sir.
And the scientists are calling this thing the Felis crapopedamus. So, because that's exactly what happens when you see that big cat.
Yeah, crap your pants and run.
Mercy day.
Try to be untasty.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hit it with pepper spray because you're just going to season yourself up.
Kay Bowers and Doc would not be saying, "Can I pet that cat?" He'd be saying, "Robbie, get in the truck."
No.
Doc could start channeling his inner stroker ace again.
Yeah. Shoot that thing. Yeah.
But seeing a creature standing upright on a ridge is one thing. It's distant. It's surreal. It doesn't even seem real to you. It's easy to tell yourself you misread the shape, or the moonlight played tricks on your eyes, or the distance just distorted everything. But what happens when the distance disappears? What happens when the creature isn't a silhouette on a ridge, but a presence standing just across the creek from you? Close enough to see the fur, close enough to see the tail, and close enough to see the eye shine staring back at you. Because our next encounter doesn't happen on high ground. It doesn't happen at a distance. It happens in a tight, claustrophobic dark place near War Eagle Creek in Arkansas in Madison County. A place where the cedars crowd the banks and the night feels like it's holding its breath. Two brothers out coon hunting, seasoned, confident, unshakable hunters, found themselves face to face with a creature that didn't run or hide. It didn't behave like anything they'd ever seen. A creature that stood upright like a man but moved like a cat. A creature that held its ground until the moment it chose not to. If the ridgetop silhouette showed us this creature's outline, this encounter will teach us its intent. Robbie, you want to take us into segment 4?
Absolutely. Segment 4, the creek bed standoff. Madison County, Arkansas, late 1980s. War Eagle Creek is one of those places that feels older than the rest of the Ozarks. The water runs cold even in summer, and the cedars crowd so close to the banks that the moonlight barely touches the ground. On a cool October night in the late 80s, two brothers, Dale and Ronnie, were out coon hunting along a stretch of creek they'd walked hundreds of times. They trusted their dogs. Always trust your dog. They trusted their instincts, but that night both failed them. The hound stopped at the creek crossing, not hesitating, not sniffing, but refusing. Their bodies were rigid, tails tucked, ears pinned flat. Dale had seen them charge a black bear once without blinking. Whatever they sensed now was worse. Ronnie whispered, "There's something out there." Dale raised his spotlight and swept it across the creek bed. The beam caught on the water first, a thin silver ribbon cutting through the dark, then the rocks, then the cedars. Then it hit something else. A shape, tall, still, standing upright on the opposite bank. First, Dale thought it was a bear, but the longer he stared, the more details betrayed that idea. The creature's shoulders were too narrow, his torso was too long, and behind it, a thick, muscular tail swayed slowly, like a cat preparing to pounce. The head was wrong, too, angular, feline, with ears that twitched independently at the sound of the creek. The creature didn't run, it didn't charge, it simply stood there, swaying slightly as if studying them. Ronnie whispered, "That ain't no bear." The creature tilted its head, and the motion was smooth, too smooth for a bear. Its eyes reflected amber, not the green of a cougar or the blue-white of a black bear. Dale fired a warning shot into the air. The reaction was instantaneous. The creature dropped to all fours in a single liquid motion, like gravity didn't apply to it the same way, or to apply to it in the same way. It didn't crash through the brush. It didn't break branches. It simply vanished, moving with speed and silence that made both men stumble backwards. The dogs refused to cross the creek. They refused to hunt the rest of the night, and the brothers would never return to that stretch of War Eagle again. For years afterwards, when asked what they saw, they always said the same thing: it stood up like a man, but it moved like a cat, and it wasn't afraid of us.
And so that wasn't a sighting from way away on a ridge. That was across a creek from him. Right. And I don't know about y'all, but creek, don't confuse a creek with a river. Creeks are usually within a few steps. You cross them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And most of the time when you say creek, the water's usually only about that deep.
Right.
Good. Nice.
And the warning shot was just a bluff. I've coon hunted before. You don't carry anything bigger than a 22, maybe a 22 Magnum.
Or a 410 shotgun.
Maybe a 410 shotgun. My point is, you're not carrying something big enough to take on a 7 or 8 foot cryptid.
No.
You just want to piss it off.
Unless your intent is to shoot your buddy in the leg and get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, why do you carry that 22 bear hunting? Shoot. All I gotta do is be faster than you.
That's right. Always hunt with somebody you don't like very much.
Right. What was that joke about the two guys that were grizzly hunting out in Alaska and said he survived a grizzly hunt with a 22? And somebody said, "How'd you survive that grizzly attack with a 22? Oh, well, I just shot my buddy in the knee and took off.
Yeah, so beware of the man who goes bear hunting with a 22.
Yeah,
and the fact that it ran from the gunshot. Obviously, it's probably heard many shots in that area, and so it knew what it was. But I mean, honestly, I don't know that I'd have done that. That could have been considered a act of provocation to that thing. You know what I mean?
I'm afraid it would have come across that creek.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's kind of terrifying. Sorry, a peppermint stick.
You're right, Doc. The tail. very much a feline tail.
Yep.
Described very much like the like way a mountain lion's tail is described. And twitching, or a tiger. Tiger's got that big rope of a tail too, or a panther.
Yeah.
But the eye shine was different too. Described it as amber, which is unusual.
Yeah, that you usually hear that more along the dogman side of things.
So what about the dogs?
Trust your dogs.
The dogs didn't. At least they didn't turn tail and run, but they dang sure weren't crossing that creek.
Yeah,
The dogs were like, and they were like, no, we ain't going there. And if we ain't going there, then you can't hunt with dogs. Because if you hunt with dogs and we ain't going, then guess what, buddy? You ain't hunting. So we're going back to the trailer. We're going back to the kennel in the back of the truck.
Hillary, we've talked about the Order of the Hoo-Hoo. They were allegedly put into place to protect the Ozark Howler. But supposedly they're a worldwide organization giving credence to those things are in other places.
Man.
And when the way they describe the movement, fluid, cat-like.
Again,
yeah,
same type of gait pattern.
Yep.
You know, it's just.
So, Doc, from a medical standpoint, what kind of adaptation would there have to be for them to have hands but still spend most of their time on all fours?
Well, I mean, just like we were looking at with those, like that picture you had with the big ginormous thing where it looked like it had claws, but when it was down on all fours, it looked like it had been what? Like here's the claws extended, but when it's like that, they're curled in.
Right.
It almost kind of reminds me, and I'm not trying to do primates or anything compared to a primate, but it's almost like when a gorilla is sitting there on its haunches and it's down on its arms, where it's
it kind of rolls its knuckles under and
kind of rolls its knuckles under. But I'm like, I don't see how that could be comfortable to run on. But maybe it's at what we call like burst speed, like short distance bursts just to get from point A to point B, super fast.
Well, look at a raccoon. When a raccoon's just walking around, it's got its front paws splayed out. But when they're hauling butt, they tuck their knuckles under like a gorilla.
I'm today years old. I didn't know that.
Yeah, raccoons, when they're running, they don't just keep their toes splayed out like hands.
Would raise my rent.
A buddy of mine has a pet raccoon, and when it decides to haul butt across the living room, it folds its hands up into fists and just takes off.
I'll be doggone. I did not know that. Now that's interesting.
He put child-proof locks on all his kitchen cabinets, and the raccoon figured it out in about 2 minutes.
They're smart, man. I mean, when Angie was down, she was camping on some island with her cousins. It's it's just south of Pensacola, and the raccoons there are kind of like bleached blonde almost. They're not black and gray, kind of a brownish color, khaki. They were getting into all their Tupperware and unscrewing lids off of stuff and everything.
Chris, Artigue, yeah, exactly. That's how gorillas do it.
Yeah, so I mean, they're smart little critters.
My middle son Nick, his best friend was babysitting a raccoon for a friend of theirs that has one, and the first time he was giving it a snack, he said it absolutely wigged him out. That he said, I always understood they had front paws. He said, but when it reached out and just took it and held it, he was like, that thing's got hands.
Got little tiny hands.
He said that just freaked me out. Like, oh yeah, man, they're odd.
Oh yeah, my buddy had one, and he used to have to keep water in the bathtub in his spare bathroom because anytime you give them food, they go and wash it. and watching those little things in the bathtub, just washing their food and just.
They're smart little critters, man.
They are very smart.
But with those different colored, would those be called caccoons instead of raccoons?
I guess so, man.
So the way it behaved across the creek from those guys, it was predatory or warning?
Well, I mean, I'd say it's more warning because it didn't come at them whenever they shot. Because if they had shot and it came at them, I mean, we probably wouldn't have got that story.
2 missing hunters near War Eagle Creek.
Exactly. So I don't know. Just from
there's a ton of game in that area. I mean, a ton. It's a great hunting area.
I mean, just from that small encounter, I don't know. I think it might have just been observing them. Kind of like, what y'all doing out here on my turf, man?
I think they were just both out hunting and happened to cross paths.
Yeah. Just a chance encounter. I mean, that happens.
It may have smelled the dogs and thought it found food, and then like, uh-oh.
Right. Because, I mean, that chance encounters with wildlife happens in nature all the time. So who's to say why wouldn't it happen with them?
And that same description of the tail keeps cropping up in these stories.
Yep. The tail and the gait.
Mm-hmm. How fluid it moves and the shape of its head.
Yeah, K. Bowers, those hunters would have been hit by lightning.
Yeah, exactly.
Lasers.
Freaking laser beams.
So, what about y'all in the audience? Have you ever seen an animal do something like that? Standing up on its hind legs, moving like that? Have you ever had a sighting of something like this? Minxie's his beady little eyes.
Oh, mercy.
I know these guys were armed, but from having coon hunting experience, they weren't carrying anything big enough to take on something like that.
No.
They're lucky it decided to leave because
like you're out there with a 30-06 or something like that.
Right, that's way too big to kill a raccoon with.
They probably got a 22 or 22 Magnum.
Yeah, I always carried a 22 Magnum.
That's what my grandpa carried. Lord have mercy. I don't know.
K. Bauer says, Doc, don't feed the howler after midnight or get it wet.
Bro, I ain't feeding that at all. No. I mean, it might be a little heavy metal deficient, and I'll maybe throw a little extra lead its way, but
it's got a lead deficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happened at War Eagle was a moment the creature stepped out of the shadows and right into the open. Not at any kind of distance, no ambiguity to the sighting, no tricks of the moonlight, just a predator standing upright, watching 2 armed men like it was deciding what to do next. But the pattern doesn't end with the hunters in the deep woods, because the next encounter doesn't happen miles from civilization. It doesn't happen in a ridge or a hollow. It happens in a place where people feel safe, a family farm in Howell County, Missouri. And this time, the witnesses aren't seasoned outdoorsmen, they're horses. Animals that know the difference between a coyote, a bear, a cougar, and something else entirely. On a warm summer night in the mid-1990s, a teenage girl stepped out to do her chores and found every horse on the property locked into the same point in the tree line. Not panicking, not fleeing, just staring, alert, tense, and waiting. And when she followed their gaze, she saw it too. A tall, upright figure, a long tail curling behind it, a feline head turn that no human or bear could mimic. And in the creek bed encounter, if the creek bed encounter showed us a creature willing to stand its ground, this one shows us a creature willing to approach human spaces and watch from the edge. Robbie, do you want to take us into the next segment?
Let me get to it. This is segment 6, right? The bluff overlook. Or we in 5?
5.
Oh, sorry, I went too far.
No worries.
Sorry.
I accidentally closed my document, so.
Howell County, Missouri, mid-1990s. Late summer in Howell County has a particular kind of stillness. The cicadas drone so loud it feels like the air is vibrating. The heat lingers long after sunset. On one of those heavy evenings, a teenage girl named Marissa was doing her nightly chores on her family farm outside of Willow Springs. She'd done this routine 1,000 times. Feed the horses, check the troughs, lock the barn. But that night, something was off. The horses were restless. All of them stood facing the same direction, ears pinned forward, bodies tense. Horses don't spook easily on that farm. They were used to coyotes, stray dogs, even the occasional black bear. This was different. They weren't afraid, but they were alert, watching something Marissa couldn't see. She followed their gaze towards the tree line, and that's when she saw it. A tall, dark figure standing upright just beyond the fence. At first, she thought it was a person, maybe a trespasser, maybe a neighbor checking on something. But the longer she stared, the more the shape betrayed that assumption. The figure's shoulders were too high and too rounded. Its torso tapered like a big cat, not a human, and behind it, barely visible in the dim light, a long curled tail flicked. Marissa froze. The creature didn't move at first. It just stood there, upright, watching her. The posture was wrong, though. Too balanced and too steady. Not a bear rearing up, not a human standing still. Something in between. The creature turned its head. The motion was unmistakably feline. Smooth, low, and predatory. The kind of head turn you see in a mountain lion right before it decides whether you're a prey or a threat. Her breath caught. The creature took a single step upright towards the fence. The horses panicked, stamping and snorting, but refusing to run. They were caught between fear and fascination. Then, in one fluid motion, the creature dropped to all fours, not like a bear collapsing and not like a human falling, but like a cat, a massive, heavy-bodied cat shifting into its natural stance. It glided into the woods with a grace that made Marissa's stomach twist. No crashing, no snapping branches, just silence. The next morning, her father found tracks in the soft dirt near the fence. They were wide and heavy and wrong. Not a human or not a bear, not even a cougar. Something in between, something he couldn't identify. Marissa never did chores alone again.
Do you blame her?
Nope.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't blame her at all.
The horses clearly knew something was there.
Surprised she ever did them again, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or at least did them with a shotgun.
Yeah, exactly. In a Q beam. And what you just said, DA, about horses, bro, horses are tuned in, man.
Yeah, they are.
They are tuned in. If anything is funky out there, they'll let you know with a quickness. I mean, their ears are going to prick or lay down, and their eyes will get wide. They're going to be looking. They'll be stamping around and shuffling and snorting. Yeah.
Horses have got a lot of ways to let you know something ain't right.
Amen. Yeah.
And they're a lot smarter than people give them credit.
Bro, I mean, why do you think people keep mules and stuff in their pastures?
Or llamas.
I mean, a mule will kill the crap out of a freaking mountain lion.
Or coyotes.
Or coyotes.
Or coyotes. They'll stomp the snot out of them. Yeah, Miss Lene, horses always know.
I got a buddy that said he came out one time outside and his mule, or no, it was a donkey. He had donkeys, which will do the same thing. But he said he went outside because he heard a bunch of commotion. He went outside and his donkey had a coyote in its mouth shaking it around.
Speaking of coyotes, did you hear what they were talking about up in Wyoming and Montana? Apparently, they've identified a new type of coyote. Ranchers thought they were wolves. It turned out after they killed a few of them and DNA tested them, they're just massive coyotes.
So they're not a coy wolf?
Nope, they're a full-blood coyote, but they're the size of a wolf.
Ooh.
That's scary.
Yeah, the ranchers were having trouble killing livestock. They thought it was wolves. And they set out some hunters and took a few of them down, and then they had game and fish check them, and they're like, these are coyotes. These aren't wolves.
That's freaking scary right there, dude.
Yeah, that's not good news. That means anytime we go out, we've got to be extra careful. Because coyotes will take people. If they think they got the chance, they'll do it.
Yeah, because they're pack hunters, man. And that's how they'll get a cow down, is they'll just gang up on them. You know what I mean?
Roxanne says she saw the picture and read the article. They're huge coyotes. Miss Lene says 15 minutes. Miss Lene, we're going to go over a little tonight, so we'll do a commercial in another 10 minutes. And then, because we've still got a couple stories to go, we'll be able to go late tonight, and we'll be able to go late on Saturday. But Race has already let me know that starting next week, we're going to have to trim things back to 2 hours. But these subjects we've been covering had so much more detail in them. I wanted to do a full show instead of just doing it as a two-parter. So we'll take another commercial break in about 10 minutes. But again, the tail, the description of the tail.
Right. That's kind of been the thing, and also dropping down
The
to all
motion.
fours.
Well, and the motion too, the
The
fluid motion.
Yeah, the gait. I mean, those three are like the trifecta. You know what I mean? And how it's upright, but it doesn't look weird upright. It doesn't look like a bear standing upright. How they do their little paws out like that. You know how there's like a prairie dog standing up.
Yeah.
You know they all like that. So yeah. Huh. Well, no, I hadn't heard about that new freaking coyote. You said it's up in Wyoming. They're hearing it.
Wyoming and Montana, I believe it was.
I'll have to ask John about that because he lives.
If I can find the article again, I'll send it to you, Doc.
Okay, he lives 9 miles to Montana border. So
Roxanne, if you know how to find that article, could you send it to me and I'll just give it to Doc?
yeah, I might see that.
Yeah, White says that's not terrifying at all.
No, not at all, man.
Tammy says the coyotes are as tall as my Rottweilers, but not as broad.
Now, I will say this. Okay, so Ranger, when he was roughly about 28 inches at the shoulder. He was a big boy. He's 110 pounds. I remember me and him were walking one night out in the backyard, and we saw some coyotes. And this is up in Boulder County. We saw some coyotes that were way bigger than him, and typically they're not. I had to do a double take, and I hit them with my light because I thought it was like a freaking wolf, man. So, and that's been 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So I'm wondering. I don't know. I'm wondering if they've been around for a minute.
William says genetic engineering with the dire wolf.
I don't know. But I know that's the biggest.
I think that would have showed up, but
I would think. I mean, that was the biggest coyotes I ever seen in my life. Because the ones I'm used to are like little skinny, mangy looking little suckers. You know,
when animals face new challenges in their environment, they adapt.
They either die or they survive. That's
Right.
nature. That's nature. And then how they survive is like you just said. They adapt and they get more stronger.
Yeah.
Much more better.
Much more
The
good.
guy says, "Oh boy, dog men, cougar men, coyote men."
Dude, I tell you, I mean, I don't know. Those were the biggest dadgum coyotes I ever seen in my life. And so if they say they're getting as big as a gray wolf up there, dachshund, man. Did the short legs.
Yeah. But going back to this story, talking about her father finding tracks in the soft dirt near the fence, wide, heavy, not human, not bear, not cougar, something in between. Something he couldn't identify.
Hang on, DA. I'm sending something to the co-host chat that Rodney just sent me.
Now that sounds kind of like the track y'all saw out at Eric's house, ain't it?
Does sound kind of like it.
Kind of weird. It wasn't this, wasn't that, wasn't the other.
Eric says the Missouri Timberwolves look a lot like coyotes, but larger and fluffier tail.
Wait, they got Timberwolves in Missouri?
Yup. Yes, sir.
Check the co-host chat. DA Rodney just sent me a picture of the comparison of the new coyotes.
Okay.
And
I got it. I'm bringing it up.
Good Lord.
that
sucker's been on some supplements or something.
I wondered if these coyotes got Acme stamped on them.
I don't know.
Wiley's done been into the Acme steroids.
Dadgum. That's the one on the normal coyotes, the one I'm talking about. I grew up seeing that new coyotes like the one I saw out in Boulder County in 2014. Dadgum.
So this new size may be breeding true across packs.
Yeah.
That's rather terrifying.
Ooh. I mean, and the way they pack hunt.
Well, I'm definitely gonna make sure we're all carrying something with a little thump to it when we're out.
How many generations of coy wolves have been around now?
Lots of generations.
So what
It
happens?
could have bred into the population, and now it's showing up as basically just coyote.
Yeah, so what happens if those coy wolves are now breeding back with normal coyotes, and you're getting these
super dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super yotes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Toshi says, coyote saw coy dogs, coy wolves, and said, bet. Yeah, man.
My beer.
Yeah. I mean, because it's been proven for years and years that they could have interspecies breeding. So
if there can be hybrids among known populations, there certainly can be hybrids among cryptid populations.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean that's how you get them. That's how you get a mule.
That's right.
Was it a horse and a donkey, or a donkey and a horse? I don't know which has to be which, but same thing with a lion and a tiger. You get, depending on what's the mother and what's of each one, you get either a liger or a tigon.
Yeah. So, kind of from looking at the tracks, Robbie, you're the track expert, but the way the father described the tracks, wide, heavy, with a midfoot impression, that would seem to imply a creature that walks partially on its heels, which is rare.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at that picture William gave us,
mm-hmm.
If you look, the heel is kind of high up on it, but it still is attached. It's not like it's like in a normal dog, you got that little heel bump up here, but it's not attached to the pad. The pad kind of ran down the bottom and attached right there. So if it stood up, that would probably flatten down. That's probably where you get stuff like that.
Makes sense.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Because you would need a wider and longer platform to stand on if you're going to stand up and support that kind of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Move like
William
that.
says every now and then generations will increase in size and strength depending on their competitors in the hunting. And the Northwood says inbreeding leads to horribles.
It's nice. It's a perfect example. Oh, mercy.
Oh, bless you. Bless your heart, Northwoods. You kill me. So, the way this thing was acting, clearly, I think it was displaying predatory characteristics. Those horses, while not panicking, knew something was up.
Right.
And that's Howell County, some pretty rugged terrain.
Because horses
know the heart of the Mark Twain.
And they know horses know different scents of different critters, and so they might have been like, wait,
what is that?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. This was probably something new, the way they were acting. If it's been a predator that's coming around, they would probably be attuned to it, but they probably wouldn't be, so nervous acting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take a quick break for pay some bills. We got a couple commercials we got to play, but when we come back, Doc, will you want to take us into transition into Incident 6 and then take us right on into the story?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, then we are going to take a quick pause to pay some bills. And folks, it was a great time to top off your coffee, stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, and we will be back in just a few minutes.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical, in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com. In a world where monsters still walk the earth, one author dares to face them. From the brutal cryptid horror of the Apex Predator series to the Ozark legends that stalk the night in Lakeview Man, from the elite warriors of codename Wild Hunt to the relentless investigations of the Nightmare Hunter and the frontier terror of Dark Frontiers. When the dead rise, the Ragnarok Rising saga unleashes pure zombie apocalypse fury. And across the stars, war rages in the Lost Legion and Man's Marauders. And in the realm of myth and steel, the world of Vanguard calls to those born for legend. Cryptids, zombies, sci-fi warfare, epic fantasy. This is the universe of D.A. Roberts.
And we are back, folks. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We're going to jump right back into this with segment 6. Doc, take her away, brother.
All right, man. So what y'all heard happen in that Howell County barnyard, that was just a reminder that this creature is not confined to just deep woods. It's not limited to remote hollows or these big forgotten ridgelines. It watches from the edges of our spaces, human spaces. It studies, and it chooses when to be seen and when not to be seen. However, the pattern does not stay at the fence line, because our next encounter takes us right back up into the high country and into the steep, rugged terrain of Crawford County, where the ridges rise like black walls and the valleys swallow all the sounds. And it's a place where moonlight turns the world into silver and shadow. Now, on a warm summer night back in the early 1970s, a group of teenagers parked at a bluff overlook and saw something that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. They saw a big, tall silhouette on a ridge, upright, balanced, with a long tail curling behind it like a living question mark. And when it moved, it didn't move like a person. It didn't move like a bear. It moved with that same rolling, gliding gait we've heard about now in multiple counties, a gait that shouldn't belong to any known animal in the Ozarks. Now, if the barnyard encounter showed us a creature who was willing to approach human territory, this one shows a creature that it claims the high ground and is not afraid to reveal itself under a full moon. So, this is called the Bluff Overlook. In Crawford County, Arkansas in the 1970s, the Mulberry River Valley is beautiful by the day. Sunlight on the water, hawks circling overhead, the smell of pine and river stone. Now, but at nighttime, the valley changes. Those rigs turn into those black jagged shapes, and the moonlight paints everything in silver and shadow. On that warm summer night, early 70s, when this group of teenagers parked up at that Bluff Overlook, they had their windows down, radio was low, enjoy the breeze rolling up from the river. Everything was nice and cool. It was a kind of night where everything felt wide open and harmless. Now, one of them noticed some movement on the ridge across the valley. A tall figure stood up on that crest, perfectly outlined by the full moon. At first, they thought it was a person, maybe another group of kids messing with them, maybe a hiker who had wandered out too far, stayed too late. But the longer they watched, the more wrong the silhouette became. The figure's shoulders were too high, too rounded. Something else we've heard. The head was too forward set, too predatory, and behind it was that unmistakable, even at that distance, was a big old long tail curled and flicking. The group fell silent. The creature took a step upright, and the motion seemed wrong, not natural, not human, not a bear. A rolling, gliding gait that made the silhouette seem to float more than walk. One of the teens whispered, "That's not a person." The creature paused at the ridge's edge of its listening, and then the forest went still. Even the insects went quiet. And in one fluid motion, like we've heard in other stories, the creature dropped down to all fours. Not a bear collapsing, not a human collapsing or falling, but it was like a cat, a big, heavy-bodied cat, shifting into a natural stance. And then it leapt down a slope, moving with speed and agility that was beyond human compare. The teens watched in a stunned silence as it vanished in the trees, and a little bit later, a few minutes later, or a few moments later, they heard this big, deep, resonant, powerful howl vibrate in the air coming from the valley floor. It definitely wasn't a wolf, and it definitely wasn't a cougar, but it definitely was something that they had never heard before. They left immediately, spitting gravel out from their tires. They tore down that mountain road, and for decades later, whenever the story was retold, it always ended the same exact way. It wasn't a man, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a cat. It was something else. That sounds very, very familiar, doesn't it?
Yep.
Made me think when you said they were spitting gravel, made me think of that Charlie Daniels song, Uneasy Rider. He's slinging gravel and putting a ton of dust in the air.
It's all standing around, stepping and fetching like their hair is on fire and their butts was a catching. This one right here, I mean, this is what we're talking 70s, 80s, 90s. We're talking a couple incidents in 70s, some in the 80s, some in the 90s. These are all multiple years apart, like Robbie had mentioned, and what are we still saying? The silhouette, the long tail, that upright posture, that automatically rules out cougars and other big cats because they don't stand up like that. And Robbie
rules out a bear because it had a big tail.
Right. And Robbie has been saying this every time we've been talking about it. The gait. That rolling, gliding gait. It's almost like it was floating.
And the times that the tracks have been described, not a normal track.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's multiple observers. And
each time it not only started out on two legs, but wound up on all fours.
Right. And this has been almost every freaking encounter too, man. The teens in the 70s, could they have had a couple of barley sodas and some left-handed cigarettes on board? Yeah, sure. Why not? But the fact that they all saw the same exact thing and their stories all were describing the same exact thing, that's crazy. I don't know.
And
Robbie,
it's the similarities that stick with you on these.
Right. What's your take, Robbie?
Like you said, all you can pull similarities out of every one of these stories we read tonight, and over multiple decades, that the stories have such eerie similarities to them that people love to say, "Oh, well, it's hallucination," but typically over decades, people don't have the exact same hallucination over different areas. Not like it's the same area, not like it's
Yeah, because these are all scattered all across the Ozarks.
Yeah,
some of them hundreds of miles apart.
Yeah, so I mean, typically that's not what you describe when you talk about mass hallucination. That's usually a large group of people together at the same time under a stressful situation that kind of see the same thing. This is, like you said, hundreds of miles apart, multiple decades, different people that have probably never talked to each other ever before, seeing the same thing. It's just like we talk about with all the Bigfoot sightings and everything. How do you explain people over even thousands of years describing and drawing pictures and making the exact same descriptions if there's not something to this?
Right.
Exactly.
And William Nighthawk says, you're describing the Igumu trickster spirit. What color eyes are they seeing? Wasn't it amber or yellow?
Yeah, the one time it described eye shine, it described it as amber, which doesn't match anything that I know around here. And Wyatt, you're correct. It does kind of line up with the Drury Mincy accounts.
Yep. Well, that sounds a lot like what those teens described down there.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories that we got from the conservation officers who went in after that.
Yep.
Right.
And the vocalizations all being not like a mountain lion. They could feel the vocalization. Mm-hmm. I've heard lots of mountain lions, but I've never once felt like it vibrated my chest. And we had one just not far outside our tent. We were camping down in Arkansas with my brother-in-law. Annette and I and the boys were sleeping in a tent, and Don was in his camper. And I heard that thing probably 30 yards in the woods behind our tent. I got up, grabbed my pistol, and put the boys in the camper with Don.
Well, but what other large animal that we know of in the animal kingdom, when it makes a sound like that, it's described that you can feel it? Big cats, tigers, lions.
Mm-hmm. That infrasound we was talking about.
Right.
That's crazy.
William says there have been reports of a cryptid years ago along the Great Lakes region with amber and fiery orange eyes. If you could forward me any of those accounts, William, that would be awesome. I'd like to check those out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Muy interesante.
But to me, it sounds like this thing probably spends most of its time on all fours, but stands up either to hunt or to survey.
Yep.
Right. Kind of like an observation type mode.
Right. So what about y'all in the audience? You ever seen something like at the edge of your long beam lights or something that, crossing the road up ahead of you? Have you ever seen something that didn't match any animal you've ever seen or ever heard of, or any animal that should naturally be there?
I don't know.
Lone Queen says, I would suspect the creature approached on all fours, probably more quiet that way. Went on two to observe and then back to four to travel. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense.
Now, boys, if we saw something like that standing on a ridge watching us, we'd have to reel Robbie in because Stroker over here is getting ready to hit the wheel.
we would all have our armaments in hand. We just may be in different positions. For sure.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
That was said with all the love in my cold black heart.
Robbie, I'm going to take us into the next section. Do you want to read the last section? I'm going to lead us into it. So what happened on that bluff in Crawford County was the kind of moment that sticks with people for the rest of their lives. I mean, a creature that's standing upright on a ridge, framed in moonlight, moving with a gait no known animal should have. It was bold, it was visible, and it was claiming the high ground. But the pattern doesn't stay in the mountains, because sometimes this creature steps out of the woods entirely. Sometimes it comes down from the ridges. Sometimes it walks right up to the edge of the human world, to the places we think of as safe, predictable, and controlled. And that's where our final encounter takes us. A fog-heavy highway in Ozark County, Missouri. 3 a.m, no houses, no headlights, just a truck driver alone on the road rounding a bend and seeing a tall, upright figure standing on the shoulder like it had been there waiting for him. A figure with the same long tail, the same feline posture, the same unnatural balance, the same smooth, deliberate, upright steps we've now heard in 6 other stories. And then, just like the others, it drops to all fours and vanishes without the sound. If the bluff overlook showed us a creature unafraid to reveal itself, this final encounter shows us a creature that's willing to cross into our world when it wants to, even on the open road and even in the dead of night.
All right. The Roadside Sentinel, Ozark County, Missouri, 2000s, yet another decade. Fog settles differently in the Ozarks. It doesn't drift, it clings. It hangs to the low ground, swallowing fence posts, blurring tree lines, and turning familiar roads into tunnels of shifting gray. On a late night run to Gainesville, a truck driver named Carl found himself alone on one of those fog-choked stretches of highway. It was just after 3 a.m., no other headlights, no houses, just the hum of the engine and the soft hiss of the tires on the damp asphalt. As he rounded a bend, something appeared on the shoulder ahead, a dark shape, tall and unmoving. Carl eased off the accelerator. At first, he thought it was a black bear standing upright. Not unusual in this part of Missouri, but as he rolled closer, the fog thinned just enough for the headlights to catch the outline. And everything he thought he knew was falling apart. The creature's shoulders were too high and too rounded. His torso was sleek, too elongated, and behind it, curling like a question mark, was a long, muscular tail. Carl's breath hitched. The creature turned its head sharply, and the profile was unmistakably feline. Not a bear, not a person, but something else entirely. For a moment, the two locked eyes, or at least Carl felt like they did. The creature stood perfectly still, upright, balanced, in a way that no bear ever could. Then it moved. It took 2 upright steps toward the tree line. The motion was smooth and deliberate, almost human, but not quite. Something in the gait was off, like a big cat mimicking a person's walk. Then, in a single fluid motion, it dropped to all fours. It's not a stumble and not a fall, but a transition, practiced, natural, and predatory. The creature vanished into the fog with a speed that made Carl's hands shake on the wheel. No sound, no crashing brush, just gone. He pulled over about a mile down the road, heart pounding, and sat there until dawn. He never drove that route at night again. Years later, when he finally told the story, he summed it up in one line. It looked at me like it knew what I was, and then it left like it didn't care.
Eric Testerman told me just about a week ago, maybe it's closer to 2, but a week or 2 ago, that he saw a large black cat-like thing just outside of Springfield over near the old Union Cemetery. That he caught it in his headlights as he was heading home. And that was 2 miles from here.
Yeah, we've drove by that cemetery several times.
Chris, he says, Chris Artigue says, I know truckers see a lot of weird things, but I'd love to hear what train engineers see. But bet they have some interesting stories. I've been told on a number of occasions that they do, but the railroad tells them to shut up about it.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. I'm sure other railroads are just like this. We have Norfolk Southern here in this area.
We got Burlington Northern around here.
And we had a train wreck happened when I was still working at Liberty, and we had a train hit a truck was pulling a trailer, and I don't mean a trailer, I mean an actual mobile home trailer. And the guy was trying to beat the train. He went across, and the train demolished the mobile home. And we were trying to work the wreck, and my corporal was trying to get the information, and it wasn't the train engineer's fault. It was the guy, and he was just trying to get the information. So we had the whole road shut down. We could, I mean, this was like a major intersection in the city. And those guys were like, nope, we ain't telling you nothing. We had to wait for Norfolk Southern's law enforcement to get there, talk to the engineers, figure out what was going on before the road was shut down for almost 5 hours, waiting for somebody to get there before he would give them permission to talk to us, just to give us the information to finish the wreck report. So if they're not going to talk to you for something that legitimate, they sure as heck ain't going to talk to you about something like that.
Yeah, what I'm told, Burlington Northern, the conductors, the engineers are all told you don't discuss anything that happens along these tracks, not without clearing it through the office first. And unfortunately, that does involve weird things they've seen. My brother-in-law was an engineer for a while, and he said it was very stressful.
Oh, yeah.
But,
I mean,
so with this saying this, to me, these are all credible stories. You know, they're not full of, you know, it was farting rainbows and puking moonbeams and walking through portals. There's none of that in there. There's nothing really bizarre other than the creature itself about these stories. These are just everyday circumstances where people saw something they couldn't explain.
And you know, if you get a certain area, one area that has a sighting, and every single sighting is almost identical. Okay, maybe you start thinking, well, and they're all around the same time. Maybe you start thinking, okay, people are just, you know, trying to get, but like we said, decades apart.
Now they span 4 decades with people that didn't have contact.
Yeah, and over hundreds of miles apart in some places, and they're all the same. They all describe the same type of creature. That, to me, lends a lot of credence to it, because it's not people that are just talking and trying to, you know, get some kind of rumor started or some kind of perpetuate some type of hoax. You know, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to do it in one area. You're not going to spread something like that out over multiple decades, hundreds of miles apart, and describe the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't think you would do something like that. You'd want to have it be in one area because you're trying to garner attention for that area or something like that. I mean, this has no rhyme or reason to the areas that they're in. It just happened to be people that were most of the time hunting or camping in that area and saw something.
Well, this truck driver would refuse to drive that section of road again. That clearly shook the dude up.
Yeah.
If that was just some story, he'd just go right back to driving it. But what he saw impacted him enough. He didn't even want to go in that area again. So to me, every one of these stories, they have that ring of truth to them. They feel real, like real stories. They don't seem embellished. They don't seem to be impossible or unimaginable stories. You know, it's not like, you know, I was smoking something down by the creek and saw purple dragons flying around. I might question that one unless, you know, 3 or 4 campers down, they saw the same purple dragons. Then I would probably give it more credibility. But all of these were very direct, deliberate stories that didn't rely on a lot of crazy details. They just described a bizarre creature in very natural circumstances.
And with the exception of a few stories, most of them had multiple people in it that saw the same thing.
Right. Yeah, very few of these were single person sightings. Only a couple of them were.
Yeah, the girl with the horse, the truck driver, and the bow hunter at first. Everything else was multiple sightings or multiple people.
The similarities here, the tail. tail's always a similarity. The shape of the head, a similarity. The way it moved, also similar. And the description of it going from from 2 legs to 4 is kind of telling too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really, really think that the legends behind the Ozark Howler might be this. That what these cat creatures we're seeing, it might be the howler.
I think that's a very plausible theory that we're working on with that, because I mean it's all in the same area. Look at the howler descriptions, and you can almost like we said earlier, you can almost superimpose that over this, and a lot of the behaviors too. People seeing the howler standing up but moving on 4 legs. Same thing here. Cat-like creature standing up. So maybe people who are not as into the cryptid lore as people like we are, that don't know anything about the Ozarks Howler, they're just describing what they saw, an upright feline type creature. But
exactly.
People who are more into the different types of cryptids, they're like, oh, well, that's an Ozarks Howler that I saw. But
right.
if just a general person that doesn't know what an Ozarks Howler is, never heard of it, because you got to be kind of almost in the deep end to really know a lot about what the Ozarks Howler is and the history of it. So if you're just a normal person that just sees something, that's what you're going to describe. You're going to describe an upright feline that moved around like that. So I think it's very plausible that all these sightings are the same thing.
And I really feel like that the horn aspect of Ozarks Howler might actually just be those big tufts of hair on the ears.
Yeah, I mean, and it could even be that it has some type of mane or something like that. That's you see it in the moonlight. That's what it looks like. Because none of these people described horns on its head. But there again, go back to that. If people think they're looking at an Ozarks Howler, most of those people will think, oh, well, it's supposed to have horns. And they're seeing that and they think, oh, well, there's the horns, but it's just like you said, it's just maybe the tufts of hair on their ears. But all these people are just like, well, that this is just a cat. It looks just like a big cat that's standing up on its hind legs. Maybe that's where you get the disconnect between the two, is that people are expecting what they're supposed to see. So what they're actually seeing are the tufts of hair. So that's just what they're describing as horns.
And that picture that William sent, that to me, that just kind of ties it all together.
Yeah.
So tonight, what we've witnessed through these 7 encounters, 7 different multiple witnesses, 7 different counties spanning 2 states, 7 moments where something stepped out of the shadows and challenged everything. These stories are very compelling. They're very interesting, and now we're going to start putting the pieces together here, because when you line these stories up and side by side and you look at them, when you compare them, when you strip away the fear, the adrenaline, the human interpretation, what you have left is just chaos. It's consistency. We've got a biological pattern. We've got a pattern of behavior. We've got a pattern with the way it moves. The pattern that points toward a creature or a lineage of creatures that has been here far longer than the folklore that tries to explain it. So let's break it down. First, consistency of anatomy across all 7 encounters. Right, boys? Every witness across decades and counties describes the same core feature: long muscular tail, feline-shaped head, forward-facing predatory eyes, rounded, powerful shoulders, elongated torso, and a dark coloration, black, deep brown, or shadow covered. But these aren't bear traits, these aren't cougar traits, these aren't human traits. These are feline traits, but scaled up, adapted, and behaving in ways that no known cat species does. Doc, since you're back, you want to take the second talking point on that?
Yeah, and then that's not only that, but what is the one thing that everybody was saying in all these encounters? It was upright, right? And they're like, okay, it ain't a bear. Okay, so why does something stand upright? And Long Queen actually had a good point on that. And it was what we were alluding to. Why do things stand upright that normally go on all fours to look, to observe, to assess, to intimidate? They want to look bigger and scare whatever they're around them, to scent the air, to catch more scents from downrange, or downwind or upwind. Let's see, and to watch from elevation, because what are some of the things that were noted in a couple of those incidents? Where were they?
On the high ground, on ridges.
Elevated position, ridges, right, where they have superiority, tactical advantage. So, I mean, these animals are because they are animals, these animals and prey animals want to have tactical superiority. So where do you have tactical superiority? The high ground. Where did Custer and them fight to? They fought to the high ground.
Still lost, but they did.
They died there, but that was one of their tactics, was getting tactical superiority from the high ground. And they can also have a better vantage point to watch anybody else approach deliberately. That's not a bear behavior. I mean, that's not a bear stretching or a rearing up. That's not a cat stretching out. This is intentional. This is a bipedal posture. It's been one of the common themes throughout all the multiple sightings. And then also something that Robbie keyed into is that locomotion. The deliberate approach in Taney County, the 3 steps in Newton County, rolling gliding gait up in the Boston Mountains, and then the 2 upright steps in the fog in Ozark County. It's not misidentification. It's not random. This is a pattern, and this is what we like to call locomotion capability. So that'll bring them to, from wherever they are, from point A to point B, as smoothly and as efficiently as possible, because that helps them keep their eyes on their prey.
Right. Robbie, you want to take the next one?
Sure thing. My phone quit going dark. Are we at forensic angles? Or
transition. Number 3.
Hold on, my phone went roll back on me. I'm trying to find it. On air talking points, right?
Yeah.
Because my number 3 says upright locomotion.
Yeah, upright to quadrupedal.
Okay. So, like we talked about, the way they move was the same, consistently over all the encounters. Fluid motion, standing up, not very balanced, not cumbersome, not looking like it was swaying back and forth like a bear. Very, very smooth, very controlled, very balanced. Talking about the tail, using it like a counterbalance, like most big cats do. The smooth transition between standing upright and going back to all fours, and then silently, which that was another key factor throughout all the encounters, silently moving away, no sound of brush breaking and cracking, which, what do we know about big cats? They're very adept at being silent and stealthy because they're ambush predators. So all these stories that we've talked about tonight, and all the ones that we've talked about before, that's what it's like. It was there 1 minute, next minute it was gone. Or it wasn't there 1 minute, next minute there it was.
Right.
Because they're built for silence, and it's just like grace in motion is basically the best way to explain it. Nothing awkward or cumbersome about the way they moved.
Yeah, that's just basic biomechanics. I mean, also describes the same plantigrade hind limbs, flexible spine, strong hip rotation, center of gravity adapted for both stances. Because at the end of the day, this is a type of ambush predator.
Yeah.
So what kind of behavioral consistencies are we looking at here? Across all 7 encounters, the creature behaves like a large, intelligent predator. It watches from cover, it chooses the high ground, it approaches quietly, it stands its ground when challenged, it retreats only when it wants to, it avoids unnecessary conflict, and it uses fog, elevation, and darkness to its advantage. This isn't random behavior, this is territorial intelligence.
Yeah, it knows its area. It's literally the master of its domain.
Yep. It's not something that's just kind of haphazardly walking around and bumbling around, and you know, it knows where it's at. It knows where its prey or competition is at, and you know, like it was, most of them have said throughout that, it was like it knew we were there, and it was not affected or afraid or acted like it was worried about us in any other way. It's just like, there they are. I ain't worried about them.
Right.
And just went on about its business.
Right. And boys, when you take all of these locations and plot them on a map, you know, Newton County, Madison County, Crawford County, Boston Mountains, Howell County, Taney County, and Ozark County, when you look at these, they're all connected by one thing, the White River watershed, which the White River watershed includes Lake Taneycomo, Table Rock Lake, and guess what's at the heart of the White River watershed? Drury-Mincy.
That's funny.
We're looking at a habitat range.
Yeah. And that's a big range too, buddy.
It would have to be big.
Yeah. Especially with that many of those predators out there, because otherwise you're going to have turf wars happening.
Because even down in Howell County, all the little rivers and stuff all end up flowing into the White River, which forms into Bull Shoals and Taneycomo and Table Rock. That whole watershed area covers a big chunk of the Ozarks. Mm-hmm. And then, right smack dab in the middle of the White River watershed is Drury-Mincy.
I'm sure they probably are territorial beefs and disputes. And
oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they're solitary creatures, which the only one that we've had story-wise that's kind of contradicted that a little bit is Drury-Mincy, when they
was a group
with multiples.
It could have been a mother with her young.
Yeah, that's the only outlier from that is that one encounter. And like you said, that maybe Drury-Mincy is like kind of like maybe a breeding area. Maybe that's
nursery area.
Yeah, maybe that's
could be.
That's where the males converge to find a female, and that's their pupping ground.
Yeah, that would explain why they saw groups of them.
Because you said that's smack dab in the middle of all that territory.
Yeah, it sure is.
That would be a
if you took all those locations on a map and put it on like a dartboard, if you went from the Boston Mountains to Howell County, literally Drury-Mincy would be right in the middle of that.
Wow.
Drury-Mincy would be the bullseye on the dartboard.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Good central area in the middle of that big area. That's just where they all end up intersecting for that stuff, and that's probably why they're more aggressive in that area.
Yeah, plenty of food, plenty of water.
Doc, you want to talk about the Howler connection?
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's where all this stuff kind of blends together. It's the Ozarks Howler that we've all heard of, we've talked about on the shows. You know, there's no folklore here. There's no horns, and there's no hellhound mythology here. It's what we're talking about here is something that's big. It's massive, right? It's got dark fur. It's feline shaped. It's shaped like a big cat, right? Except bigger. Deep voiced. What do they always say? All these encounters, when they've heard it howl, they've heard this deep, resonant, vibrating, to their soul, to their bones howl. High ground. It takes the high ground. This ridge dwelling. It's intelligent. Sometimes upright, sometimes not. But they've seen it upright, going down to all fours, and the howler's been seen in the same counties as all these encounters have. And so that howl itself matches those Crawford County and the Boston Mountain vocalizations. The silhouettes match those sightings up on the ridge tops. The behavior when those two brothers were hunting, right? They were raccoon hunting, and that matches that creek bed. So that's a little standoff there in the creek bed. And what's the one physical description that we see in every single encounter?
Tail.
The tail, that big old thick muscular curly shaped tail, and then the posture matches the roadside sentinel, where the howler in its original pre-folklore format, it may not have been a supernatural beast at all that we're talking about now. Maybe it just may be the regional name for a real, undiscovered, unknown feliform type predator, one that's stands upright, moves with locomotion of a bipedal and a quadruped, and it has been seen for how many generations now? What we were talking about? How far does this go back to the
Early 1800s?
Yeah. So I mean,
at least.
Yeah, at least a couple of centuries that we know of. So, what's the theory? Is it a myth? Is it not a myth? It's not a myth. It's a cultural echo of some kind of. There's biological lineage here. We know this of some sort of large feline predator capable of that hybrid locomotion, quadruped and biped. And it's adapted to live in those deep hollows and the high ridges, that rugged, deep terrain, and that huge terrain, and it's still active today. So
yeah, and these 7 counters aren't outliers.
Yeah,
they're the proofs in the pudding. These are evidence of a creature that watches, it learns, it adapts, it survives, and it stays hidden. And not because it's supernatural, because it's good at being a predator. This is the beginning of a new chapter in the Ozarks cryptid investigation, folks. One grounded in biology, behavior, and field data. And we're just getting started.
Yep. Pretty cool stuff.
I think we can put a lot of proof in the pudding, so to speak, when we can get the Drury Mincy investigation organized.
Yeah,
Noah's got night vision now. I've got 2 low light cameras. You've got night vision. Robbie's got night vision. We're going to get something.
Yeah, I mean, and I got thermal too. I mean, better thermal than clip on.
What's the saying, Doc? Thermal don't lie.
Thermal don't lie, man. And and what I'm wondering too is, as big as that sucker is, how fast do you think that thing can scoot?
Probably pretty fast.
So I got to get a V8, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you better get that Magnum V8.
We're going to get, is that a Hemi? Yeah.
Now, just in theory, does the insurance cover if, say, I don't know, a big rock falls on the hood?
Just saying. Yeah. He looked at me kind of funny when I said, I was like, what? Seriously, it could happen.
It could happen.
It could happen. Anything could happen. Yeah. I mean, and I want to, I'm really looking forward to getting some decent, getting some footage, something that's hard to refute, because we're going to try to debunk the hell out of it.
Oh yeah, and boys, when we first kind of put forth the idea that these upright felinoids might be somehow tied to the Ozarks Howler, it was just a thought. It was just one of those random thoughts. But the more we dig into this, the more sense it makes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I mean, I like the way you're kind of taking the folklore and the mythology out of this stuff and saying, let's look at it from a scientific, physical standpoint versus, well, this is what we've heard. I mean, because there's been a lot of stuff out there that has been folklore that, yeah, there is something physical, resembles it slightly, but totally different critter.
Well, right. Go back to the Billy Ape. That was
folklore. That was folklore
until it was National Geographic caught it on tape. Oh,
that's where I was going with that. So, yeah, it's I liked it. I like the fact that we can kind of push the folklore curtain aside and look behind it. Yes.
It's very nice.
Very nice.
But that's something we've always tried to do here. Doc's got a medical background. Steve's got a medical background and a background in biology. Robbie and I were both trained investigators in law enforcement. Doc's a combat medic. We try to approach this from a scientific standpoint. We try to approach this, what can we explain and what can we not? And more often than not, we're discovering that a lot of these things that a lot of people credited to extra dimensional abilities and things like that do have a scientific explanation. And every time we explain it, we always get someone that goes, no, that can't be it. Oh, but it makes perfect sense, like backtracking, That's how trackways disappear, because they know how to backtrack. Our special forces know how to do it. We could go on and on about things that we've offered, plausible, scientifically based theories for, but there's still a lot of folks that are resisting it because some people just want to believe in the mythological. And I'm right there with them. I mean, I love a good creepy story like that. I love, the folklore aspect to it, but that folklore tends to melt away like the fog when you start dragging actual facts into the light of day. Yep. And that's what we're trying to do. We try to prove or disprove a theory. We try to gather information logically and approach this evidence-based, and that's been our whole goal the whole time.
Go where the evidence takes us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if we don't like where the evidence goes.
Yeah. Evidence, the science is science.
Much like they taught us in the academy, when you study a crime scene, you don't form a hypothesis to fit the evidence. I mean, you don't form a hypothesis and then try to make the evidence fit that hypothesis. You form a hypothesis based on the evidence alone.
Yep, what the evidence teaches you,
right.
Not what you want the evidence to say.
Yeah, what's the evidence showing you?
Right.
It's like you don't go out and find a suspect that you want to arrest and then try to build the case around that suspect. You build the case and then you find the suspect that fits the evidence that you've already obtained.
Was it Arthur Conan Doyle said, once you've eliminated eliminated all of the possible, whatever's left, no matter how improbable, is your answer.
Right. It's just like a medical diagnosis. I mean, we do this same fact finding mission. That's all it is we're medical detectives, because we have to follow not only the symptoms, but the symptoms may lead you down one pathway, but then you get your lab results back and you're like, well, it's definitely not that what we thought. Right. It's definitely this, because there's irrefutable scientific data right in front of me showing me, hey, your kidneys ain't doing great.
And with all of these reports from people spanning decades or even centuries, with all of these reports, we can't just dismiss these as folklore or strange tales told over campfires and sweep it under the rug. Right. With thousands upon thousands of eyewitness reports of cryptids across the world, there is something here. And as Robbie is fond of pointing out, it takes a much bigger leap of the imagination to believe that there is some worldwide hoax dating back 1,000 years planting all this evidence and tracks and sightings. So at this point, you've almost got to bury your head in the sand to believe that there's not something out there. And I don't think there's any of us believe our government's telling us the truth about it.
Not anything.
Just ask the bush outside your window, DA.
Yeah, exactly. I take him coffee once in a while.
Yeah.
But the more we dig into stuff like that, don't be surprised if we don't get some angry responses. And some of it will probably appear as trolls in the chat, people saying, oh, you're just making all this stuff up. That'll happen. We've actually seen that happen a few times. But then we'll also, get people that are saying, oh, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, 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 blah. This is what he's really doing. People will resist, and not always in a good way. But folks, there's a quote from one of my favorite shows, Kolchak the Night Stalker. And it's something that I think applies to everyday life, but it really applies to cryptids. And the quote says, judge for yourself its believability. And then, wherever you may be, try to tell yourself it couldn't happen here.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
I love that quote. So, as we start winding down, folks, there's a couple things I always like to talk about before we wind the show down. I always like to mention the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. although most recent reports are saying that number may be as low as 17 a day now, which is an improvement, but it still means we've got a long way to go. So reach out to your friends and family that are first responders or veterans in any capacity. It doesn't matter what uniform they wore, because what's the saying, Doc? Some gave all gave some, and some gave all. So reach out to your friends and family that have served in any capacity and let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, and let them know they got a place to turn if they need it. Because at least, well, now 17 times a day, but 22 times a day, the hard days win. And let's not let the hard days win. And folks, if you're struggling with this, remember, you wouldn't go into combat alone. So why fight this alone? Reach out, get help. It's out there. It's available. And if you watch the credits, there's a phone number and a number you can text, or places you can reach out to: mission22.org, odmp.com, the Till Valhalla Project. All of these folks are there to help first responders and veterans. So if you're a veteran or first responder and you need help, please reach out. And now that we have discussed that, we'd also want to take for a couple moments of your time to talk about the awesome folks that keep the lights on for us, so to speak, our affiliates. The first of which we will talk about by this little gentleman right here, the good folks over at Dark Angel Medical. Doc, you mind giving us a little chat?
Oh, not at all, man. So at Dark Angel Medical, if you go to www.darkangelmedical.com, check us out. We have a wide variety of medical kits, anywhere from small little boo-boo kits all the way up to mass casualty trauma kits for your things for your car, things for your boat, things for your RV. And something I always tell people, wherever you have a fire extinguisher in your house, go ahead and put a med kit there. Go put a trauma kit there, because that way, if everybody knows where your fire extinguisher is, they know where a trauma kit is as well. All of our trauma kits are HSA, FSA approved, and if you ever use one of those kits to save someone's life, we will replace whatever components you've used, absolutely 100% free of charge, and get you squared away. And right now, we've got 211 kits that we've replaced over the last several years, which is a pretty awesome thing. More importantly than that is knowing how to use it, and we have online training. We also have a YouTube channel that you can get some information at, but we also do in-person training throughout the United States. Our 2026 class schedule is up, and so if you check that out, if we're coming to an area near you, we're going to be adding more classes throughout the year. And so just keep an eye on that schedule. And if we're around you, we'd love to see your smiling face in class. And if you use a coupon code Cryptid20 for products, that'll give you 20% off your order. And like I said, man, and I've said this many times, if the time chooses you, and you've got to be ready. So get that kit and get trained and be ready to be the difference, because the time chooses you.
Absolutely. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about the good folks over at Scallywag Tactical?
Yes, sir. Scallywag Tactical is another one of our affiliates, veteran-owned company. Craig and his crew make some of the best blades you could ever get a hold of. Excellent customer support, fast shipping, and like I said, very high quality cutlery. Any kind of knife that you can want, fixed blades, folders, whatever you want, the stabby, they've got it. So go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Use code DA Roberts 10 at checkout. Get yourself 10% off that final price, and check them out.
And folks, also check out the good folks over at SigwoArms.com. Sigwo Arms is a local gun manufacturer, and they are the only ones that have the licensing to create Dark Frontiers or codename Wild Hunt etchings on your upper or lower. They can put it on just about anything. So check them out at SigwoArms.com. It's a veteran-owned company. All of our affiliates are veteran-owned or first responder-owned companies. We're proud to do that. We're proud to support them. So check them out again, SigwoArms.com. Use discount code Bigfoot5 for 5% off your order. And they've got fantastic deals on ammunition, on suppressors, which I like to jokingly call whisper pickles. and also on your favorite types of firearms. So check them out. Again, sigmalarms.com. Tell the Codys we sent you because they're good dudes. Now, Robbie, we got one other thing we want to talk about, and I want to have you do this simply because you are about to drop another one. So tell us about the books, bud.
All right, you can check out mine or DA's or our good friend Luca, who is mine and DA's cover artist, and it was also a very profound author herself. She writes the same genre that DA and I do. I think she's got about 12 books out now. The Nicole Beretti series, very, very, very good series. If you like Wild Hunt and Grail and things like that, you're going to like all her Nicole Beretti stuff. She's also got a couple other series out. Go check her out at lucatjacobs.com, or you can find her on Amazon. You can find DA's books. DA's got 37 out now, working on 38. His and my books are connected in a one big universe, and you can check his books out at daroberts.net, and you can also find them on Amazon, and you can find my books on Amazon. Book 8 is done, and with the Wolfpack readers now, then it should be hopefully coming out sometime next week, maybe the week after that at the latest. You might like mine, and
I think you're going to like it.
Yeah,
you will.
Yeah, Doc and Miss Lene both seem to really enjoy the last update that I sent on this one. So, or the one before I finished it, rather. So, yeah, and this one is introducing the East Coast division of the Wild Hunt. So, it's a Wild Hunt book, but it's got a different principle. It's based on the Marine Corps' MAGTF, because it's a smaller, more like a quick response force type unit, whereas the Midwest Division, where Clark and them are, that's in the middle of the country, and they're a very, very big unit. The East Coast Division is a lot smaller and more streamlined. They would go after when it would take a little bit more time to mobilize a bigger unit. They're the ones that are going to go out and check it. So I think you're going to like this one. DA and I are working up towards a big Avengers Endgame style ending. So there's a lot of stuff that's really a lot of threads that are starting to get pulled together and tugged at. Before we started on tonight, now we thought we'd lost track of time because we were storyboarding before we got on tonight.
Just about went into the show talking.
Yeah. And, that's been challenging, but it's also been fun for both of us because it makes you think critically, because you not only have to think about what you want to put in your book, but you have to think about what you're putting in your book, how it's going to affect what he's doing in his, and vice versa. And hey, would this work here? Well, no, that wouldn't work here because we're doing this here. And it's been fun and challenging at the same time. And that's why it took us so long to tie the books in, even though we've talked about it. Doc will tell you this, because stuff that he wrote 10 years ago that didn't even know me at the time, but stuff he wrote then was left perfectly open to where everything is just fell into place almost like it was meant to be. And stuff that I wrote before we even knew that we were going to start tying this stuff in, it just worked out perfectly. And I may be a little biased, but I think things are just tying in great with.
I agree.
The two separate storylines, because how many series do you have?
8 series. I think
he's got 8 series. I've got now 3, and they all tie in perfectly. It's amazing how things work out like that. So y'all go check all of them out. And like I said, if you like our stuff, you'll like Luca's. Go check hers out too. She's got some really good books.
Maybe it's 10. I'm just like trying to count in my head.
He's got a lot of series out there, folks.
I've got, technically the sci-fi series are 2 different series. So I've got 2 sci-fi series, one fantasy series, Apex Predator, Dark Frontiers, Lakeview Man, Codename Wild Hunt. Ragnarok Rising, the Nightmare Hunter project, and what else am I missing?
That sounds
I think that's it. 9 then.
And then, of course, there's another series that is tying in too that somebody just finished. Yeah, any ideas who that might be, Doc?
Hey, I make maps.
And Robbie and I are going to help Doc get his manuscript polished up and released, and Doc will join the rank of published authors.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but
Him write words good.
I make maps.
He typed it and everything.
So, folks, watch for a lot of good things coming, not only from our written word, but from investigations and more shows coming. So, I hope you guys will join us on Saturday night when we bring you more Nightmare Hunters, and watch for the show so we can share it and get it out on social media. I should have it up probably tomorrow, maybe Friday. Depends on how quickly I get everything set up. But watch for all that. We hopefully will see you guys on Friday night. But again, we're excited Saturday night. But again, we're pretty excited about all the things we got coming, from investigations to more shows to more books, and bringing another writer into the fold. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, folks, and I am so thrilled you guys are along for the ride. I've said it many times, and I will say it all the time. Stories are journeys that we take together, and I want to thank each and every one of you folks for taking these journeys with us. And thank you also for being part of the Nightmare Hunter Nation. We're proud to have you. Like we discovered the other night when we were trying to reach out to help Eric, that we are a family, and we come together to help our own. Continue to pray for everybody that needs it. Miss Lene needs it. There was a couple of people mentioned it earlier in the chat. Richie was one of them. I know there was a couple others, but folks, we're living in interesting times. A lot of folks carrying a lot of burdens, and the days where you used to be able to count on your neighbor if you needed something. People don't live like that anymore, and it's a different world than when I grew up. But we could get back to that, because we need to care about each other more. And I'm proud that we have such a caring community here. You guys are awesome, and we're proud to know each and every one of you, and we thank each and every one of you for being with us. So, having said that, we are going to close this out with a toast. And we've been doing the toast for a while now, and I'm very proud of it, and it's something I want to continue to do. The song is from an old Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass. And if you've never heard the song, you should go on YouTube and look it up and listen. There's like a dozen versions of it, including one by Ed Sheeran. But my favorite is by a group called the High Kings. It's a fantastic a cappella version of the song. Beautiful tune. But the song is played at the end of the day in Irish pubs all around the world. And it's talking about lifting a glass as you leave the pub. But when you really pay attention to the lyrics, when you listen to the song, it's talking about a lot more than that. It's talking about saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. So with that in mind, and especially with in mind of the 22 a Day Foundation, we quote The Parting Glass, the chorus from The Parting Glass, as we part with you tonight. And the quote says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Slán Java, and we will see you guys on Saturday. Good night, everyone."
Slán.
Plains, the winds are howling, saloon doors swinging, shadows growling. 3 lawmen stand tough as rawhide. Yeah, Doc and DA, nothing can abide. Whiskey shots and poker faces, staring down the darkest spaces in this town where legends roam. These boys bring justice, sending evil home. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Jed's a howler, claws of steel, Doc's a biter, makes the devil real. But DA's a shifty, one a shape-shifting soul, can turn to anything, takes any form, takes control. Tonight the chupacabras come to town, sucking the life from all around. But these lawmen, they ain't afraid, they'll face the darkness unafraid. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Full moon rises, bat wings flap, the air grows cold, a chill and trap. But these lawmen, they're ready to fight underneath the pale moonlight. Jed and Doc transform with a howl, DA shifts, becomes a night owl.